The LouieTeeNetwork is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description.
Who else could it be? Me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to the Command Post Live. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. I, of course, am your Commander-in-Chief, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. So, today was one of those days where you sit in anticipation, waiting for something to happen. We knew it was going to happen. We knew what time it was supposed to happen. And you just wanted to kind of see how it was going to go. Kind of felt like I knew how it was going to go in advance. We knew who we were dealing with and what we had heard. And all we were looking for was confirmation, essentially. And let me tell you, and I'm not being a prisoner of the moment right now. Now, I will elaborate on this, but I've been a fan of this team for over 30 years, roughly. The furthest I can remember back in terms of press conferences, and the older you are, maybe you can recall some that were, previous to the ones that I can recall. The first real presser that I watched, that I sat in anticipation for, was Gibbs 2.0. I remember bits and pieces of Marty's presser when he got here. I remember some of Spurrier's, but the first one where I actually sat down start to finish and watched the entire thing and had a reaction to it was Gibbs 2.0. The 3 trophies and him standing up there and just being in awe of Joe Gibbs coming back to save us. Up until today, that was the best introductory press conference I had ever seen. It was the one that got me most inspired, the one that really made me feel that we were back. I've seen a lot of them since. There was Shanahan. There was Zorn. There was Gruden. There was Rivera. There was Bruce Allen. There is Eric Bieniemy. I could go on. There have been others. This was the best introductory press conference that I've seen pertaining to this team. Now, again, that doesn't mean it's the best that has ever been done. I'm just telling you that this is the best one that I've seen. I see the vision now. I didn't see the full vision before. We had heard rumors, innuendo. We had heard whispers about not wanting a first-time owner paired with a first-time GM, paired with a first-time head coach, and potentially a rookie quarterback, all in the same year as you're trying to start anew. We had heard rumblings of that. And I really wasn't moved by that narrative. Who cares if everybody's new? Figure it out, right? You heard from a guy today in Dan Quinn that has gone through an experience. And because of that experience, he's grown. And because he has grown, he now wants to show everyone the growth. The only way you're able to do that is if you get another opportunity to show what you've learned and how you've grown. We've all experienced that at some point in our lives where we did something, the outcome wasn't favorable, it wasn't the way we intended it to be. You learned from that experience, and all you needed was another opportunity to prove that you had learned from the mistakes you made previously. There are so many things we heard today that we didn't hear from Ron Rivera, and that was his second time as well. These were 2 totally different press conferences. I didn't walk away from Ronald Rivera's press conference blown away. I just said, thank God he's here. First of all, I was confused because our owner at the time walked in and said, Happy Thanksgiving. And I'm like, did I miss something? Is there a joke? Because I'm looking at the calendar and it's January. So I walked away more confused than I was enthused. There was no confusion today. Everybody was on one accord. You see what they're building towards. You see the messaging. It's clear. There is no confusing parts that you have to sift through. And I think the thing that I love the most is that Dan Quinn is just a guy you can root for. Like, you don't even have to like Dan Quinn. You don't have to love his ideology or what he stands for. You don't have to love the hire, but how could you watch today and not just say, damn, I want to root for Dan Quinn. I want to see him win. Now, I will say this. I don't know if the way that I feel is directly tied to the fact that this just feels new and there's no Dan Snyder or Bruce Allen or Vinny Serrato here to ruin anything. Maybe that's a large part of the reason why I feel so good about what I watched today. And I think as I sat down and I was jotting my notes, I said, I think I feel the way I feel because I actually think this could work. Because there's no black cloud. There's no Dan Snyder. There's no Bruce Allen. There's no Vinny Serrato. There's no one here to F it up, to sabotage it. We just got real people trying to work together in unison to create an environment that is conducive to winning consistently at the highest levels. That's what I saw today. And because I saw that today, I got excited. Shoot me for being a fan. I've done this before, but this one just felt different. And maybe it hit different because, wait for it, maybe, just maybe, it is different. We'll see. We'll see. We've all made that mistake before, thinking it was different after a press conference. But this is the first one we've seen with Josh Harris as owner, Adam Peters as GM. We'll see if this one is different in a real organizational structure. I thought Dan Quinn knocked it out of the park, just like I expected him to. Not only did he meet my expectations, he exceeded them, far exceeded them. So much so, I took notes. And I took a hell of a lot of notes. I don't know if you can see all of that. I took a lot of notes. I don't take notes. You guys know me. I don't take notes on press conferences. I just go off the top of the dome. Whatever I remember, I remember. If I forget it, then it wasn't important. I took notes. I was engaged. I listened to it twice. So this one felt good. This feels like the beginning of something. Could be the beginning of the end of what we thought was new. Or it could be the start of something great. Or it could be mid. Doesn't have to be one end of the spectrum or the other. It could just be meh. We'll see. But today felt good. Felt damn good. I was very, very impressed with what this is going to be. We saw the triumphant right today, right? This is what it's going to be. This is the power structure. This is the group right here. Owner, Harris and Company. GM, Adam Peters. Head coach, Dan Quinn. We saw the triumphant right there. Now let's see how they're able to get it done. So let's get to this presser. I got some stuff for you tonight. A couple of things that I want to rattle off to you. Before we get to the presser, let's jump into this real quick. I wanted to make sure you guys had a chance to take a look at this. I retweeted this, but not everybody's on X, right? Jeremy Fowler of ESPN tweeted out the following. Raiders granted Commanders permission to speak with defensive pass game coordinator Jason Simmons, per source. Simmons worked closely with new coordinator Joe Witt Jr. in Green Bay and is considered a prime candidate for the position on the defensive staff. So, as I've mentioned to you before, Joe Witt Jr. is a defensive backs wizard. And you pretty much heard Dan Quinn speak to that at his press conference today as part of the reason why Joe Witt Jr. is here. Now, we'll talk more about that as we dig into the press conference itself. But it's not ironic, I don't think, at least, that one of the first moves that may be made outside of hiring a coordinator is going to get the pass game coordinator defensively. I don't think that's on accident, that they're going to try to go get Jason Simmons. Don't know him, right? Couldn't pick him out of a photo lineup, but they thought highly enough of him to go seek this man out to try and get him on board. So it begins. If there's one position that I expect to be infinitely better immediately upon the arrival of Dan Quinn and company, it's the secondary. Lord knows we need it. So I just wanted to throw that out there. And I'm gonna stir some shit up tonight. I'm gonna hit the hornet's nest tonight. Hope y'all ready. But let's start the night off right with this presser, and let's get our reactions to it. And I can't wait to get to your reactions to what you saw today, because that is equally as important as what I think. I enjoyed reading a lot of your comments. I put out a post right after I finished the press conference, and I tweeted out, so what were your guys' thoughts on the press conference, your initial reactions? And a lot of you guys were excited. So I can't wait to read some of your responses here tonight. But my first thought, the very first thing that I thought when they came out was, damn, I see how everybody feels when I show up late to my live streams, because they were like 7 minutes late. Now I'm bullshitting. I didn't think that. Gotcha. Nah, the first thing I thought was, I love the fact that he spent a lot of his young adult years in the DMV, because he talked about Salisbury College, which is where he attended, met his wife, et cetera, et cetera. Then he talked about the 2 jobs he held after that, which was at William & Mary and then at VMI. So he was in this area. He was entrenched here. He understands, and he made it abundantly clear that he understands the importance of what this team means to the city, to this area. And I don't know why I'm a sucker for that, but I just am. Because there's so many people who are fans of this team now, or who are fans of other teams that see us as this downtrodden franchise. And because we've lost so many fans, or there's so many fans that have been quiet or are dormant right now because of how this team has been performing in its leadership, et cetera, et cetera. You don't really understand what this used to be. And there's so many fans that are of a certain age that just don't understand. This is one of the best fan bases in all of sports, not just the NFL, but all of sports. It's a passionate fan base. It's a fan base that, when they're at full throat, there aren't many that can match what Washington once was and could potentially be. If somebody can come in here, and how many times have we heard someone come in here and talk about wanting to restore what was once a proud franchise? Dan Quinn pretty much said the same thing. We heard it from the owner, Josh Harris. We've heard it from Ron Rivera. He talked about coming in here with his Bears teams in the mid 80s and how RFK was the hardest stadium to play in. And we've heard that from just about everybody that came through here. The bottom tiers would shake, right? They'd be jumping up and down, making noise. Some of the most iconic scenes in the playoffs happened here. We want Dallas. The cushion game against the Falcons in 91. Like, some of the most iconic images from the postseason happened here in Washington. And The bow from John Riggins after the performance against the Vikings. Are you kidding me? Like, so many iconic things happened at RFK. The fans were ridiculous. They were outstanding. There used to be a season ticket waiting list for this team. We have been reduced to a fraction of what we used to be. And so it always touches me just a tad bit when somebody who remembers what it used to be like. Because I remember as a kid thinking, oh, we'll win the Super Bowl next year. I was spoiled as a little kid. I just thought this, when you first become a fan and the first thing you see is your team win a Super Bowl, you're thinking, oh shit, this is fun. This is how it always is. So I just kept thinking, next year we'll win the Super Bowl. Okay, don't worry about it. Next year we'll win the Super Bowl. Oh, okay, don't worry about it. Next year we'll win the Super Bowl. Okay, don't worry about it. Next year we'll win the Super Bowl. And then it was, well, maybe next year we'll win the Super Bowl. Yeah. Well, maybe we'll make the playoffs. Well, maybe we'll have a winning record. And then it stopped being about winning the Super Bowl, and then it just became, can we just not get our asses beat like we stole something? And that became a distant memory. Now I'm at the point, can we just have 2 winning seasons in a row? Hell, can we just have a winning season? When's the last time we did that? You got to go back to what? 2017? The last time we had a winning season? Like, can we just do that? So I love the fact that he understood because he was here. He was in the area the last time this team was relevant and was the biggest thing in town. So, again, that's just the me thing. That's a preference that I have. I love that Josh Harris is the owner because it means something to him, being from this area, understanding what this team used to be and wanting to restore that history, restore what we once were. That means something to him. He said when he got here, he's a steward of the area, of this team. This team, he is a steward of taking care of this team because of the duty that he feels like he has to the area, to making this team relevant again. So I appreciate bringing another guy in, even though he said he was from Jersey, so that makes me think he's probably a Giants fan growing up. He said he loved NFC East football. He made sure not to disclose who he rooted for. We can put our thinking caps on. He grew up in Jersey. Probably he could have been an Eagles fan. More likely though, he was a Giants fan. Could have been a Jets fan. More likely than not, he was a Giants fan. That's what that probably says to me because he said he grew up loving NFC East football. But I'm not gonna hold that against him, right? So that was the first thing that I thought about when I was watching this presser. So then I'm going to just go in the order of the bullets and the notes that I took. I might be all over the place, but I'll hit everything that I want to get to throughout the press conference. So, and if I miss something, please, by all means, fill in the blanks for me. All right. So the first thing I want to jump into during the presser was why Washington, right? So I think this is the thing that we got most excited about when we were able to land Adam Peters. He talked about Dan Quinn, that is, why he turned down opportunities the last 2 years to take a job. There were opportunities there. I thought the one job, because last year to me, the pool of jobs available were trash. And I personally, if I were a coaching candidate, wouldn't have wanted any of them. The Denver job was probably the best on the market, but you still were inheriting a Russell Wilson that you didn't know if he was washed or not. But outside of the Denver job, I wouldn't have wanted the Carolina job. We see how badly that went for Frank Reich. I wouldn't have wanted any of those jobs. There were a lot of jobs available last year. Arizona was available. There's a few others. Again, none of them were really noteworthy, to be honest with you. Not to shit on teams that had openings last season, but that's just the way it was. Like last year wasn't a great, year to be out in the market looking for a job. That said, Houston was available, and D'Amico Ryans did a hell of a job. We saw what he did. Indianapolis was open. These weren't jobs that people sought after and coveted. But the year before that, I thought the only job then was Jacksonville job. That what I would have wanted. And they were interested in him. And I thought he should have taken that opportunity. You were getting Trevor Lawrence, and you had a really solid defense with some pieces that he could have worked with. But there was a thing there that stopped him from taking that job. And he made it abundantly clear. I don't care about your quarterback situation. I don't care about your cap space. I care about the guys that I got to work with every day. I'm talking about the owner. I'm talking about the GM. And nobody wanted to work with Trent Baalke, the GM in Jacksonville. That's why Byron Leftwich, who probably should have taken the job, didn't take the job in Jacksonville. Remember, he was a former first-round draft pick of the Jacksonville Jaguars. It would have been like a homecoming. He was hot off of the Tom Brady Super Bowl win as the coordinator. And he turned that opportunity down because everyone told him and everyone else, don't work with Trent Baalke. Well, the reason Dan Quinn wanted this job, and he said he was hoping he would get this opportunity, he kept checking his phone, and we'll get into that, is because he wanted the structure that exists in Washington right now. The owner that's patient, that gives you the resources you need, puts everything into this organization, gives you everything that you need. Anything that's at his disposal is at your disposal. Cliff Kingsbury, we learned this today, wanted a 3-year deal. The Raiders were trying to give him a 2-year deal. He balked at it. They went back and forth. Apparently, Magic Johnson hit Cliff Kingsbury on his line and was like, bro, look, I don't know how things are going with the Raiders. I haven't heard anything, but just in case it's not going well there, we got a spot over here for you if you're still interested. Just letting you know. You know how to hit us. You know how to find us. Just wanted to put that bug in your ear. So they were being stingy with the years. So then he said, all right, you know what? Tell them I'm good. I got another opportunity over here. He hit us up. You want 3 years? We got 3 years for you. We could have bucked off on the 3. We could have said, nah, we got you for 2. We gave him a 3-year deal, and we got it done. And that's a testament to the ownership group, right? So everything that he needs, he's going to be provided with, and he's going to be backed. He's going to have the support of this owner, even when things aren't going well. Josh Harris isn't going to flinch nor blink. He showed us that last year with Ronald Rivera. Could have fired him very easily. Didn't, right? So he took it a step further, though. He was like, but this GM, though, right? Like, this is the part that's most important to me because I learned from the last time I was doing too much. And we'll get into that and into the specifics of that. But he's like, I need a right-hand man. I need a guy that's going to be in lockstep with me as I go through this process. That guy is Adam Peters. The combination of Josh Harris and the ownership group and Adam Peters is what attracted Dan Quinn here. It's what made this an attractive job. I don't know if you heard this, but Raheem Morris called us to let us know that the Falcons offered him the job, which means he wanted this job more than he wanted the Falcons job. Okay. You don't call another team to let them know, hey, before I say yes to them, I just wanted you to know they offered me this job. Just wanted y'all to know in case y'all were thinking about doing something before I pull the trigger over here. What's good? Y'all still gonna go through the process? If that's a yes, I'm gonna go ahead and head over here with Atlanta. You do that out of courtesy when you really want that opportunity over there. Because if I'm not fooling with your job and I get an offer over here, just think about it in the terms of you, right? You got 2 different jobs that you went on interviews for. One of them you really want, right? The other one, you'll take it. It's a bump in pay from where you are currently. You know, the benefits are nice. but you really want the other job. But you can't afford to wait on that other job when this one right here told you, hey, I need an answer by tomorrow. So you gotta know what's it gonna be. It's 7 of y'all competing for one spot at that other job. This job, they're offering it to you right now, but you got to tell me, yeah, by tomorrow. So you hit the other job up like, I just wanted y'all to know I got another opportunity, and I just wanted to know what direct. You're not going to call that other job back to see what they decided if you don't want that job more than you want this job. If this job were first on your list, you're taking this job and you're not looking back. So for him to call us and be like, hey, I just wanted to let y'all know Atlanta offered me their job. That tells you just the kind of impact already. And this is why we were so excited when we got Adam Peters, when we got Josh Harris. This is why we were excited, because it's already happening. The changes are already taking place. So that was one reason. That was the biggest reason Dan Quinn even came here and even wanted the job. He said what drew him here, and I kind of talked about it already. The leadership is what drew him here. Peters, Harris, Magic, Rails, and company. That's what drew him here. But he talked about the players. And he said, and I love this because, look, it ain't a lot of shit here. Let's not fool ourselves. But I'm not going to let nobody disrespect our receivers or our defensive tackles. You can talk about any other positions on this team that you want to. Have at it. All right? But don't talk about my receivers. Don't talk about my defensive tackles, because that's all I got. And Eric Bieniemy tried to make my receivers look like trash last year. I won't stand for it. I won't stand for the Jahan slander. I won't stand for any Terry pushback. We got stuff over here, especially if you bring Curtis back. But even if you don't, you go out and get another guy, and that guy can play ball. You got stuff here. Even Diami ain't trash. So I love the fact that he was like, look, and he knows. He knows. Two things. When you're a defensive coordinator, you don't watch the other team's defense. You just watch their offense. So he knows what we got on offense. He played against us 2 times a year for the last 3 years. So he knows what our receivers are about. Okay? 2, the first thing he did when he was interviewing for this job is he had to take a look at the roster. He had to take a look at what he was walking into. And he already knew about Jonathan Allen and Daron Payne. He already knew about John Ridgeway. He came from Dallas. He knew about John Ridgeway. So he knew about the interior. He knows that that's a good group. So he's like, look, I know those 2 positions in particular, and just leave it at that. You ain't got to try to elaborate, name no names, nothing. He did it perfectly. These receivers are talented. We had the game plan to stop them. These defensive tackles are beasts. We know what they're about. I'm a guy that looks at the defensive side of the football all the time, and I know what they got here in Washington. Bam, done. So here were a few of the phrases that we heard and that may be routine phrases moving forward. Some of them were just specific to this presser. You're not going to hear if I get another chance anymore after today. You shouldn't hear it a bunch, because this was more about his journey back here, right? If I get another chance. But that was one of the phrases. He said, there were 5 words that kept me from being where my feet are, which is another phrase. And we've heard that one with Rivera quite a bit. And I think that's an NFL thing, because I've heard other coaches of other teams talk about be where your feet are. Okay. That's not just specific to Ron Rivera, but he said these 5 words sometimes kept me from being where my feet were. And he said, that's if I get another chance. Because as a coach, when it doesn't go well the first time, and that's the ultimate goal, is to be a head coach, again, you don't know if you're ever going to get another shot. And it's tough. And he kind of spoke to that a little bit later on, and we'll get to that, and we'll touch on that when we get there. But Be where your feet are, obviously, was another phrase. Kicking ass or kick ass was a big one for him. He loves saying kick ass or kicking ass, right? And he says, look, I cuss a lot. He's like, look, I swear, it is what it is. One of the lines from the thing was, hey, I've earned the swear word essentially because I haven't, sworn in a while, and I've been doing really good, but I swear a lot. So I'm allowed to do this. And he pretty much said, let me see if I can kind of get this one. He said, I like doing tough shit, or I like doing hard shit with good people. So something to that effect. I may have messed it up by a word or two, but it was something to that effect. I love doing hard shit with good people. And again, that's just another example of why people love Dan Quinn, right? Competition is a word he used numerous times. Competing, having guys compete. Get it on. He loved to say get it on. I kept thinking about Marvin Gaye because he kept saying get it on every time he talked about playing football. We're gonna go ahead and mix it up. We're gonna get it on, right? Like, and then another one of the phrases, and there are several others, and we'll get to those when they're relevant. But the last one that I loved was keep the main thing the main thing, because he talked about his first stint in Atlanta and how sometimes he got caught up in other things and not focusing on what was the main objective, which was getting the football team ready, or getting a specific side of the ball ready, or getting the entire team ready. And he said, I've learned that I got to keep the main thing the main thing. All that other stuff. And, I can say Ronald Rivera is probably somewhat jealous about the opportunity that Dan Quinn is getting, because he didn't get to keep the main thing a lot of time here in Washington. Some of it was his fault, though. He would say stupid shit out of his mouth, and then there would be blowback, and then he would act surprised like, oh, well, what did I do? What do you mean, what did you do? You just created an S-storm for no reason. But there was also the name change, all of the different allegations and lawsuits, and all of the shit that was swirling around Dan Snyder, and sexual harassment, and workplace misconduct and mistreatment, and all of the shit he didn't know, but he should have done his homework and knew who he was working for and who he was getting in bed with. But that's nor here nor there. Dan Quinn will get to keep the main thing the main thing. He won't have to worry about all, and that's why I said it's so important that I have a GM who can shield me from that shit, so I can just focus on football. So let's talk about the timeline, because I was wrong about the timeline. So remember yesterday I was like, so I think I know what the timeline is. I didn't know shit. Because remember, Rivera or Quinn interviewed Tuesday, and then right from the interviews in Detroit, John Keim tweeted out that Adam Peters went straight to Mobile to be with the rest of the brass at the Senior Bowl. So that meant that the interviews were complete at that time. But I thought that they had already made their decision. Quinn already knew when he started interviewing candidates. But that wasn't the case. He had already started interviewing guys prior, and he made it abundantly clear how the process worked. He said, no matter where I went, I was bringing these two dudes with me, Joe Witt Jr., if he wanted to come with me, excuse me. And Cliff Kingsbury was the guy I wanted to work with as OC. It didn't matter what your quarterback situation was, if you had an established veteran, or we were having to draft somebody, whatever the case may be, didn't matter. None of that shit mattered. These were the two guys I had in mind. You have a list of candidates that you would love to work with should you get another opportunity. And for me on the offensive side, he said, Cliff Kingsbury was one of those dudes. So the timeline wasn't what I thought, because he said he waited and waited and waited, and he didn't get the call till Thursday. So when we found out on Thursday, he found out on Thursday. This wasn't a situation where he already knew. They kept it under wraps, and then they released the information on Thursday. He didn't get the phone call until Thursday. So I was all impatient. Like, what are they waiting on? They hadn't made a decision yet. That's what it boiled down to. Learning from past mistakes. And he talked about one of the phrases you're going to hear is this was another popular phrase, a 360 of himself, meaning he was able to take inventory of the things he did right, the things he did wrong. He reached out to others. We heard this from Logan Paulson, who works for the Commanders on their network. And he talked about, he told a story, and I don't remember if he told it with John Keim or he was with somebody else or he was with Craig Hoffman or whomever. I remember him telling a story about when Quinn got fired. They started 0-5 that last year. He got fired, and Quinn started making phone calls. And he talked about this in the presser where he said, I've reached out to people. I asked everyone, what did you think I did wrong? And could I have been better here and there? And so he started taking inventory of the things that he felt like he needed to do better. And he called up ex-players, ex-coaches, and really kind of got a feel for what everybody thought and got all these opinions and started to try to use some of those ideas and implement some of the things people said he could do better. And Paulson said, look, I'd never had a coach do that before or since Dan Quinn did that. That's just not normal where someone gets fired and then they contact you to find out how could they have been better. That's true introspection, right? So in doing that 360 of himself, he realized one of the things that he can't do this time around is call the defense. So remember, I told you one of the things I wanted to find out was, did he call the defense in Atlanta? Yes, he did. And, I think having covered the league, and watched it as closely as I have for as long as I have, generally, if you're a hot candidate and it's your first opportunity to be a coach, generally, whatever got you the job, offensive or defensive, you're going to continue to do that because you enjoy doing that. How often is it that an offensive coordinator who was hot on the streets gets his first opportunity to be a head coach and doesn't still call plays? That's rare. We still see a lot of play callers calling plays because that's what they enjoy doing. That's what Sean McVay enjoys doing. That's what Kyle Shanahan enjoys doing. That's what Matt LaFleur, enjoys doing. Andy Reid doesn't call plays anymore. He's a very big part of what's going on. He's on the headset. He's got a lot of influence as to what's being called. But he learned from his Philadelphia days, I got to allow somebody else to do that so I can manage the game. And Dan Quinn said, one of the things I learned is that I can't be too heavily involved on one side or the other. I got to manage the entire team. And he said, I got to allow somebody to call the offense. I got to allow somebody to call the defense because you know what's very important? Managing the game on game days. You know how much music to my ears that was? When I heard that, I was like, there was like this peace and serenity that came over me listening to him say that, because we watched a coach for the last 4 years botch game day management week after week after week after week. And it was so maddening. So to hear him say that, I was like, oh man, you don't know how much that means to me as a fan, Dan Quinn. So he talked about other things defensively, some of the strategy he used as a head coach the last time and how he adjusted. We'll get to that a little bit later on. So he talked about so many different things that he's learned, from his first experience as a head coach. And he also learned that it's going to take more than himself. He felt like he took on too much the first time, which is why he felt like having a strong team and most importantly, a great relationship with the GM was important because he felt like he did too much in Atlanta. Not going to have to do that here. So why offensive coordinator Cliff Kingsbury and defensive coordinator Joe Witt Jr.? So he got into the specifics. I've already explained to you that he said that those two in particular were high on the list. And he said that he had made a list of guys that he would have been interested to work with should he get another opportunity. And Witt was easy for him because this was a guy that was with him in Atlanta. Then he got fired. Witt came with him to Dallas, and he got to work very closely with him for the last 3 years. And he saw this guy's tireless work ethic. He talked about Joe Witt Jr. I told you guys that, you know, this guy is a technician. This guy is a teacher. And it makes sense because he's a coach's son. You know, I watched that press conference he had talking about his dad and coaching at Auburn. And I talked about, you know, him being the dream. That was the interview that he talked about. One of his dreams was to be the defensive coordinator of the Dallas Cowboys, right? That opportunity existed. He could have stayed in Dallas. But that's the same thing that I just talked about. Do you take opportunity in hand, or do you run the risk of going to Dallas where they're interviewing guys like Ron Rivera right now? They interviewed Ron Rivera today, and they're still interviewing candidates. You're not a lock to get that job. This one is already here. You want this job, it's yours. Can you turn that down, waiting to see if Dallas is going to give you an opportunity to be the defensive coordinator? Or are you going to take the job that's already here being offered to you, working with a guy that you know you can trust? The decision was easy for him. And, you know, Dan Quinn talked about Joe Witt Jr. and how this guy is a teacher, but more importantly, he was the architect of the pass game defensively. He was the pass game coordinator. And he said this guy teaches it the right way. Tackling. And, you know, when it was like he was speaking to me when Dan was talking. I said, DQ, did somebody give you a script of all of the mistreatment that I've suffered over the last decade plus? All the shit that I watched, particularly last year, that's fresh wounds. Did somebody give you the list? Because you're checking off a lot of boxes right now, as if somebody gave you a script. Hey, you might want to hit this point. You might want to hit this point. You might want to hit this point. They saw a lot of missed tackles last year, and I'm thinking, he's like, no, I ain't talking about A-gap. Making tackles in the A-gap. I ain't talking about that. I'm talking about in space. I said, there you're talking to me. I watch Percy Butler miss tackles in space all the time. We talked about capping runs last year. I said, Dan, go on. Go on. He said, no, I ain't talking about in the A-gap. We're talking about in space. These guys like Cliff Kingsbury and Kyle Shanahan, they want to get their playmakers the football in space, and you got to be able to be fundamentally sound and get them on the ground. He said, you know what else you got to be able to do? You got to be able to take the football away. And while Joe Witt Jr. was in Dallas, they had 93 takeaways. I said, yeah, go on, Dan. We're listening. Come on, Quinn. You can do it. You can do it. And he said, you know what else? He gets these guys prepared mentally to play fast, to play physical, so they don't have to go out there thinking too much. Dan, Quinn, stop it. Stop it. I had heard enough. But he wasn't done yet. He said Cliff Kingsbury, on the other hand, we go way back. We were at an award show together. We hit it off pretty good. I've kept up with his career. We battled each other in college. I went on to the pros. I kept up with what he was doing in college. Saw him at Texas Tech, et cetera, et cetera. He got to the league, and I had to coach against him, and the guy was tough to deal with. And I just felt like if I ever got an opportunity, he's one of those guys. You know, he stretches you vertically. He stretches you horizontally. You know, he gets guys, you know, the football in space. He's a risk taker. He does a lot of good things. And I just felt like, damn. And, you know, game recognized game. And one thing you will always know is when a coordinator is hard to stop, you want to work with that guy. You want to work with that guy. So he was like, if I get a chance, I'd love to work with him. So he was like, it didn't really matter. You know, this is the beauty of all of this, because so often we connect dots. I'm guilty. Guilty as charged. I'm one of the most guilty parties when it comes to connecting dots. I told you that's what we do here on the Louie T Network. And I'm unapologetic about it. We draw inferences, for better or worse. That's what we do, right? And so one of the inferences that we started to draw, a lot of people started connecting dots. There was a specific reason why Cliff Kingsbury was brought here. Got to be to work with the number 2 overall pick. He's had this track record with all these young quarterbacks. I brought that up. I said, yeah, hey, look, there's Baker Mayfield. There's Patrick Mahomes. There's Kyler Murray. There's Caleb Williams. I mean, you could go all the way back in the timeline to when he worked with Case Keenum back at Houston. Like, he's got a track record of doing it big with these quarterbacks, getting them to the NFL, and a lot of these dudes end up being successful when they get to the league. That's not on accident. Mahomes is giving Cliff Kingsbury credit for helping him become the quarterback that he is today. But that's not why Dan Quinn brought him here. He's like, I didn't give a shit where I was going. We could have had a 92-year-old veteran quarterback. I still was bringing Cliff Kingsbury with me. Well, that kills a lot of those theories that were out there that this is why he's here. Got to be getting this guy. That kills the whole, well, we got to be drafting Jaden Daniels at 2 now, right? That shit's dead. I mean, that's not, he still might be the pick, but that's not why they brought Cliff Kingsbury here. That doesn't mean anything now. Dan Quinn was like, no. I was already bringing this dude with me no matter. If I would have gotten a job in Atlanta, he was coming with me. If I'd have gotten a job in Tennessee, he was coming with me. If I'd have gotten a job in Seattle, you get where I'm going with this. So he talked about why those particular coordinators. DQ's role, he already talked about it. He's overseeing the entire process. He's not going to be calling plays on defense. He's going to allow his coordinators the free range to do that. He'll be overseeing everything. He's like, special teams is just as important as defense, which is just as important as offense. I got to oversee all of it, you know. And so he's going to be a manager, which is what a head coach is supposed to do. And so, you know, there's times where I get a kick out of this, but if this is what works for you, everything doesn't have to look the same in every organization. And every coach doesn't have, there's no handbook on how it's supposed to be done. You can do it this way if you like, but there's no right or wrong way to do it as a coach in this league. But I always get a kick out of the coaches who have zero interest in what's going on defensively. And it's always the offensive guys that call plays. Like Sean McVay could give 2 shits about what happens defensively as long as they're not giving up points. He doesn't even watch a lot of times what's going on defense. If they're struggling offensively, they come off the field. Matthew Stafford says that he's back there with Stafford. They're at the tablet. They're talking about, hey, what'd you see out there? Hey, this is what they're adjusting. This is what they're doing. So they're coming up with what they're going to do moving forward. And the game is happening. Like, you don't know if something just happened and you need to challenge. He's not even watching the game. That shit freaks me out. To see an offensive coach turn his back to the action on the field and not actually be paying attention because he's so involved in what's going on offensively. That shit blows my mind. I don't want my coach doing that. There's times where Bill Belichick will turn his back to the action on the field and he's in a circle with the defense around him. They're getting their asses reamed on defense and he's in the middle of that circle telling these dudes, get your head out of your ass. We're going to go out here and we're going to do the shit that we practice. And he's over there with them for 5 to 7 minutes. There's a game going on. And I'm like, what if you got to pull the damn red flag out of your sock, old man? He wouldn't know because he's over here talking to the defense. Not that Rivera cared. He just had his arms folded and he was just standing there anyway. Not like he was going to do anything. But I prefer my coach to actually be in tune to what's going on in the game. I'm not saying be totally oblivious to what's going on offense or defense. But I need you locked in, laser-like focused to what's going on between those white lines, no matter what's going on, offense, special teams, defense. One of my favorite discussions in this entire presser was the identity versus scheme discussion. So they asked Dan Quinn about his scheme, and he quickly shooed that notion away about scheme and how important that is. He said, no. It's less about scheme, because when it's all said and done, every team in the league does some form of cover three, inside, outside zone. Every team runs some form of some concept that we all run. And so less about scheme, more about identity. And I said, oh my God. Again, did somebody get this man a script? What have I been preaching to y'all about? One of my biggest issues with what we've done over the last decade plus is we don't have what? We have never established what? An identity. What it means to be a commander. What that entails when you're looking for a specific player. We were just picking guys. We didn't have a specific identity. And they talked about it. Quinn talked about a play style. And I said, I am going to have to go wipe myself up. This is getting a little too intense for me. It was getting that real. Pause. Because he started talking about player traits, and then he's talking about attitude and being fast and physical and aggressive. And then Adam Peters chimed in and he talked about finish, like finishing, And I said, DQ, you know how long I've been talking about this shit, man. You the first mother effer to show up here and actually talk about establishing an identity. What a commander, he literally said verbatim what a commander player is supposed to look like. And I said, DQ, why you just getting here, bruh? Where you been at, bruh? Why you been in Dallas the last 3 years? But that was a part of his journey. It was a part of the process. But I'm just sitting here listening to him. I'm like, this shit's crazy, man. This shit's crazy. This is what I've been warning. This is what I've been asking for. Now, again, they got to go out and execute. These are just words. But these are words we've never heard. These are words we've never heard. It's not like this is the same rhetoric we've been preached over and over again, and we're just hoping it's different this time. These are words we've never heard. This is unbelievable. And it goes back to what I initially started the show talking about. I see the vision now. I see why they wanted a guy that has done this before. Because if you go out and you get a young guy that's never experienced any of this stuff, all we're doing is starting over with a guy that doesn't know what he doesn't know. And we're probably going to see a lot of the same mistakes being had, because you can't correct a mistake that you haven't already made. So that guy's got to, like, we talk about this all the time with young players, especially the quarterback position. Hey, look, you got to know that there's growing pains. Why? Because this dude is going to make mistakes, because he's going to see coverages. He's going to see some things that he hasn't seen before. The game's going to be a little bit faster. As a coordinator, it's your job to slow it down for him. Create open windows for him, right? Because the game is going to speed up. They are going to throw some complex looks at him. There are going to be things that, oh, shit, they got me. I was expecting this coverage. This is the look I saw pre-snap. They switched it. What do I do now? Same thing for a coach. There are things that are going to transpire that you haven't experienced, you haven't encountered. So you're going to make mistakes. The beauty of having a retread hire is this guy already made those mistakes before. And if he's a really good coach, he'll fix them. And that's why I said some of the best coaches in NFL history, some of the guys that have been the most successful, they did it that second time around. He could be that guy. He may not be that guy. But he's speaking my language. So then we got into the QB discussion. Adam Peters is a slickster, boy. So before DQ was about to say something, and Adam Peters said, hey, I got this one. Before you say some crazy shit, I got this one. Hey, we just got here, man. We ain't even had a chance to evaluate. I said, Adam. Look at Adam. Look at my face. Adam. Hey, Adam. Y'all ain't had no discussions about quarterback. Y'all ain't had no discussions about quarterback. We just got here. So y'all met for like 2 hours, 2 different times, and y'all ain't had no discussions about quarterback. Right. My name is the real Ed Oliver then. My name might as well be Rio Robinson. If y'all ain't had no discussions about quarterback. That was a beautiful sidestep. Bravo. Bravo, AP. Bravo, bruh. That was beautiful. He didn't want to touch that. Like, yeah, we're going to leave that one alone. Anyway, I digress. EB finality. All right, so we got some EB finality today, right? So one of the conversations, first of all, I didn't like how ESPN phrased it. They did their little breaking news thing after the presser. Washington fires offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. What is all this about? We fired Eric Bieniemy. That's not how that's supposed to go. That's not how, and I get it. It's just semantics. I told y'all already, I got no ill will towards Eric Bieniemy. I know a lot of y'all think I probably dislike him. I don't. So this is the problem with some of y'all. Y'all have a tough time compartmentalizing and separating your personal feelings from your professional. I am a fan, okay? But I also understand that there's a human element to this, and I have no personal ill will towards Eric Bieniemy. As a fan, however, he can't be here. Now, we had that discussion, but I want nothing but the best for him. I hope he goes on to succeed. However, there's a way that you do things, and wording it, he got fired, to me is trash. I think that's garbage because you already knew that we hired a new offensive coordinator. So you already knew he wasn't going to be back. So the fact that you would say that he got fired, I have a problem with that because he didn't get fired today. That's not what happened. What happened today was he wasn't retained in any capacity. That's how that should have been worded. Not that he was fired. I thought that was trash, personally. But I'm not going to lie to you. Dan Quinn scared the shit out of me. Because when he started off, he said, oh, that's a great question. I'm glad that you asked about Eric Bieniemy because I had a nice conversation with EB. And I was like, uh-oh, where you going with this? And he said, and he started talking. I'm like, hey, come on, speed this up. Get to the end. What are you doing here? And he said, so he won't be working with, I won't be working with him here, but I wish him nothing but the best. I said, oh, okay. Okay. That's what I thought you was talking about. Another thing that I don't love, and I look, if anybody was interested in Eric Bieniemy, they would have hit us up and be like, hey, can we interview him for our offensive coordinator position? And I don't think we would have told anybody no. Nobody came calling. Okay. That said, I hate that he wasn't available to get out there and interview and do all of the things that you would, normally do this time of the year. But people got to be interested in you. And I don't think there were a lot of interested parties out there. That said, he said, look, we are part of a brotherhood. I respected him taking his shot last year, coming here and, but bro, I catch you on the flip side. I was like, EB, peace. All you EB stands out there, peace. So this one was a big one for a lot of people. I saw some people ridiculing this. So rebuild versus recalibrate. A lot of people loved that he didn't call it a rebuild. There were some that weren't as fond of it, that made fun of it. Dan Steinberg, who writes for the Post, or at least he used to. I don't know if he still does or not. I'm pretty sure he still does. But he, because, there's still that old guard that had covered this team once upon a time that saw them at their most dysfunctional and thinks they're still that same. They still think Daniel Snyder's here. They still think we're that same organization until they actually do something good. They're going to continue to see them in that light. I talked about Jason Reed and some of the other negative Nellies out there, the negative Nellies. and Dan Steinberg is one of them. But he talked about all the different teams in the area, the Nationals, the Wizards, and now the Commanders, who refuse to use the word rebuild when that's in fact what they're doing. Dan Quinn said, those are your words, not mine. Okay. You'll never hear me say rebuild. We're going to recalibrate. And so here's another one of those phrases that was used very often. And you may hear this a few more times leading up to the summer and maybe even throughout training camp. But he talked about finding our north, right? Our compass, if you will. And so that's his way of saying we got to find our direction. We got to find where we're going. And this offseason is going to be huge in that. We've talked about that. This is a foundation setting offseason. That's why it's so huge. And he can call it whatever he wants. This shit is a rebuild. For the fans that are tired of losing, that want to win 11 games next year, you love it. You're eating that shit up. Yum, 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 yum. Give me more. Yum, yum, yum. Eat them up. For people like me who are realists, I agree with Dan Steinberg. All he did was the thing that I do, right? Which is why I love it. I'm not knocking it because he's being an optimist. All he did was he took the optimistic route. It's semantics. He put lipstick on rebuilding and called it recalibrate. It's the same thing. We got a lot of work to do here, guys and gals. A lot of work to do, okay? So you can get excited about that word. I'm not really tripping because I know what it is. And whether we win 9 games, 6 games, 5 games, 8 games, it's all the same. It's a process. You'd like it to move fast, but like he said, there's no skipping steps in this thing. So, And he also made sure he made it abundantly clear. This is another difference between him and Ronald Rivera. Ronald put a timeline on it like a dumbass. Because so what I've learned in my journeys, if you've ever been married, you've ever been in a serious relationship, you never give definites. If your wife, your girlfriend, whomever asks you, what time are you coming home? You as a man, female, doesn't matter. You never say, oh, I'll be home at 8:30. You know why? Because your wife, girlfriend, or whomever is going to look at their watch or their phone at 8:29 and they're going to call your ass at 8:30 and say, where are you? You never give definites. Ronald Rivera, the biggest mistake he made when he got here is he told us, hey, it's going to take XYZ 3 to 4 years to change a culture. And I was when my parents were in the military, and you know what people were going to do? They was going to hold his ass to that shit. You said that it was going to take this amount of time. You can't do that. Well, Dan made sure he's like, bro, ain't no timeline here. I ain't got no timeline for y'all. I can tell you this much. We plan on doing the best we can to find our north as quickly as possible. And we trying to turn this thing around as quickly as we can. That's how you do it. So, identity. This was one of my favorite things right here. So earlier he was asked about scheme and he went to identity. Don't worry about scheme. Scheme, everybody's got a scheme. That shit evolves in the league. Don't worry about scheme. What's important is identity. So somebody came back and hit him with a question later, like, I need you to elaborate on this identity. If I ask you what a Dan Quinn team's identity is, what would you say? And when Dan said explosion or explosiveness, and he said physicality or physical, explosive and physical were the two words he gave, I nearly shit myself. What have I told you about Dan Quinn teams? Even going back to the Atlanta days, what have I told you? What were the two things I always told you? One in particular, I said, man, these bastards are fast, which is the explosive part. And I said, they're physical. They hit and they swarm. It ain't like what you normally used to seeing. It's different. Then when you saw it in Dallas, and remember, I kept telling Dallas, I want this guy gone as fast as possible because there's going to be a drop-off in Dallas next year defensively. You're a damn fool if you think otherwise. I can't wait to talk to Cowboys fans that think Dan Quinn leaving is a good thing. They'll find out real quick. It's hard to recreate what he and Joe Witt Jr. and company were able to bring to Dallas. Because Cowboys fans have such selective memory, right? They remember the things that they want to remember. I used to always love killing them. Like Tony Romo Tony Romo was to Cowboys fans what Kirk Cousins was to us. Could never win in the big game. You'll never win anything with him. He chokes, when the game is its most important and you get to the end, yada, yada, yada. That was Tony Romo for them. Just like it was Kirk Cousins for us. And I would always remind Cowboys fans, do you remember what it was like pre-Tony Romo? Because I can remind you real quick because I watched them all. I watched the Chad Hutchinsons, in the Henny, I watched the Quincy Carters, right? The Drew Hensons, the Vinny Testaverdes. I watched them all. Did you forget about Chad Hutchinson? Because I didn't. You could go back there. You do know that, right? And it's the same thing I used to tell Washington fans. Do you remember what it was like pre-Kirk Cousins? Because I do. There was that one magical 2012 season with Robert Griffin III, but there was a lot of other shit, man. And even Robert turned out to be ass after that. Do you remember what it was like? Because I do. I remember Donovan McNabb's old ass here in Washington. I remember Beck versus Grossman. That was not Beck versus Grossman. It was just gross, man. I remember. I used to be screaming, I said, oh, go Johnny. Just for him to throw 57 checkdowns. But Redskins fans didn't want to hear that. Oh, Kirk sucks. He gets all garbage time stats. Okay, fine. Whatever. Cowboys fans are doing it again. Where, the last thing they saw was the Green Bay game, and they're forgetting all of the shit that he did for them prior to that. Don't worry. They'll find out next year. It's not easy to recreate what Dan Quinn created for them the last 3 years defensively. But that's not our problem. The hallmark of any Dan Quinn coach team, whether he's the coordinator like he was in Seattle or in Dallas, and we saw how both of those, he gave birth to the Legion of Boom. Do you understand? You cannot tell the story of the NFL without talking about the Legion of Boom. Do you not understand how legendary that secondary, that defense was? And you don't think our defense is going to get better? You don't think our secondary is going to be better? There's a whole entire nickname from the secondary in Seattle. The biggest winners in all of this is the secondary here in Washington. I'm telling you. But when he said explosive and physical, somebody had to fan me. I felt like I was at a church service and I was getting hot. And you know the fans I'm talking about with the little stick on it, and you just going to work. And nobody ever told me growing up that fanning yourself generates more body heat, so you really being counterproductive. But I'm just fanning away. Whoo! That spirit, boy, that Holy Ghost, whoo, got me hot. Dan was preaching. He was preaching today. Not like that EB service we got put through all last year. Nah, not one of them. He talked about explosiveness on special teams. He talked about explosiveness on offense, having explosive plays, something we lacked last season. He talked about on defense, having explosive plays, getting to the quarterback, picking the ball off, but not just picking it off, taking it the other way for a touchdown, making plays. He talked about being explosive in every single facet of the game. And then he said, we're going to be physical. He said, I believe you build teams in the trenches, defensively and offensively. I know that's music to a lot of y'all ears out there, especially y'all that grew up in a different era where football was played in the trenches and 3 yards in a cloud of dust. So many of y'all want to go back to that way of football. That way of football is dead, but there's still elements of that exist that you need in order to be successful. You got to have an offensive line, and that will never change. And he talked about being physical. And he said, when you play Washington, you're going to know. Damn. And there was a quote. He said, damn, it's going to be hard today. I love it. That's all we've ever really asked for was like, look, I don't want nobody circling us on their calendar, on their schedule when they get the shit in May. I don't want you circling my name. Don't count me as no easy victory. That's what I'm looking to stop. Oh, we got Washington. Yeah, that's a win right there. Nah. I'm looking to dead that shit. I want that respect. That when you see our name, you know, hey, we in for a dogfight. You can call it a win, or you can say, I don't know what's going to happen there, but you understand that ain't no easy dub. You shouldn't be disappointed if your team loses that game. There needs to be a level of respect and decorum that comes with our name when you see the shit on the schedule. That's what they're looking to instill. That's what an identity does. It allows you to instill that type of fear, or at least garner that type of respect from your opponent. He talked about the evolution of a defensive scheme. And we go back to that 360 of himself. He said, what I had to do was I had to take a long look at, because, you know, somebody had asked him about, he started out odd fronts, then he moved to an even front, and, you know, it's evolved over time. And he said, I'm gonna take you all the way back. My first 8 years or so, it was, you know, all really cover three, you know, specifically all of Seattle. We know that's all they played was cover three, right? Because they had Earl Thomas in the middle of that thing, and he had the range to get sideline to sideline, red line to red line. So you couldn't do anything. Cam Chancellor was hitting you if you threw it underneath. If you tried to throw it deep, Earl Thomas was there. And then they had those two big, tall, long-ass corners, paws on the outside. There wasn't shit you could do. Then Bobby Wagner and KJ Wright, you just couldn't do nothing, right? That cover three had everybody flummoxed. Then he said, teams adjust. They're smart coordinators in this league, and they figure out how to attack, how to get guys open in that against that defense. And so by the time I got to Atlanta, we were playing that early on, but there started to be holes. They started to pick it apart. So I had to adapt and adjust. And he said, one of the things that I was able to do going to Dallas, and this is what, again, I talked about this when everybody was coming with that Ron 2.0 bullshit, is that Ronald didn't go and have 3 years as a defensive coordinator again to recalibrate, to figure out some things and to be better. Ronald just jumped back into the pool immediately. So he never learned shit. He thought he was wrong. Then he brought the whole Carolina Panthers staff with him to Washington and just recreated Carolina all over again. The same dudes that got you fired, you brought them along again and said, hey, we're gonna do it right this time. But you ain't changed shit. Hell, you even had, the FBI investigating us and shit. Anyway, so he talked about evolving from Seattle and Atlanta to going to Dallas and changing up his philosophical approach and how they did things and how they attacked offenses. And this was another part that just, it spoke to me. It really did. And y'all know how passionate I get about the goddamn moon blitz, right? Y'all know about the moon blitz. How many times have we talked about the damn moon blitz here in Washington with Jack Del Rio? We bitch and complain about him not blitzing, and then when he finally does, he calls one of them some bitches from 40 yards away. Safety coming from 2 miles away. And we watching this shit like it's in slow motion, like, I can't believe this bastard is sending the safety from 25 yards away at the snap. And so Dan Quinn is like, when you're evolving, when you're changing, you're trying shit. Everything's not going to work. But he said, what you can't do is have a blitz coming from too far out or having your players thinking too much that it slows them down. And I'm like, Dan, I've been saying this for years, bro. They talked about how complex our defense was. And how Ron said, Jack's defense was complex. I'm going to dumb it down. And he still was making dumbass mistakes, even though he dumbed it down. He's like, nah, I want my guys to be as clear-headed as possible so they can go out and play as fast as humanly possible. That's how you get that fast, physical flow into the football, 11 hats all fly into the football. That's how you generate turnovers. Less thinking, more playing. The less thinking you do, the less thinking you do. And so he said, the blitz has got to make sense. You can't make it too complicated. Again, he was preaching to me, man. NFC East advantage. He said that really there's no advantage in terms of scheme. And he's right, because and we had alluded to this. I still think there is an advantage being in the division, knowing the personnel, and he did say that. He said from a scheme perspective, Philadelphia is going to be different. They got a new offensive coordinator, so that's not going to help. Dallas, he knows them. He didn't mention them, and he said the Giants, are making changes. So schematically, all of these teams are going to be different. He said, hell, we're different, right? But he said from a personnel standpoint, having gone, and he didn't name any names, but I'm giving you examples, having gone against A.J. Brown for the last 2 years, having gone against Devontae Smith for the last 2 years, having seen, 3 years rather, having seen, the Eagles up close and personal, having seen CeeDee Lamb up close and personal, knowing what he's capable of, having seen, the Giants, and they'll have a lot of changes because Saquon was their best player offensively. He probably won't even be there this upcoming season, right? The personnel in the division. So you got an idea of what you can do to try to slow them down. So there's that, but there's no clear advantage there. Then there was a question about, and this is crazy because I asked y'all this same question on Sunday because somebody had asked me that same question on Thursday. So I thought it was a great question to ask. And that was, what does a successful year one look like for you as a fan? And so they asked Dan Quinn, what does a successful, these were some really good questions. I was proud of the media that was there in attendance. They asked some really good questions. And he said, finding our north. Again, that was his thing, right? Finding that compass and finding north. He said the biggest thing that he's looking to do in year one is to establish an identity. He's like, if we can come out of that first year knowing who we are, having built this roster the way that we want to build it, and having laid that foundation. He didn't put any specific win marker, which no coach will ever do that. Even Ronald wasn't stupid enough to do that. No coach is going to say, well, yeah, we're aiming for 6 or 7 wins. Nobody's going to do that. Excuse me. But realistically, you might be thinking in your head, hey, we can get to 7 or 8 wins this year. That's a win. We won't know until after you assemble the roster, the draft picks, and you see what you got. Because you might get to camp, you might be, shit, we a lot more talented than I thought, a lot sooner, right? You just don't know. You might be like, hey, we got a lot of work to do. We ain't nowhere near where we need to be, but we going to compete. But this shit ain't going to end well for us this year. So we'll know, once we get to camp and we see a little bit of something. But he said establishing the identity is what's most important. I couldn't agree with him more. That's not the only factor for me, but that'll be one of the big deciding factors. Is, did you establish who you are as a team? Obviously, quarterback is going to be a big one, because until you figure that out, you really don't have shit for real. Because you could have everything, and if you don't have a quarterback, you still ain't got nothing. But clearly, the identity thing is something that's big with me. It's been something that I've been looking for this organization to establish. But when you don't have smart people and you don't have one central idea, or, you don't have everybody on one accord, it's hard to then establish an identity, because everybody's vision of what the team should look like is different. And that's been the problem here in Washington, is they've never been in lockstep. Your owner thinks you should go get Dwayne Haskins and that Carson Wentz is the answer. And then you got Bruce Allen out here telling everybody that we're close, while he's over here penny pinching and going and getting Chris Culliver and, all of these guys for next to nothing. And then you got the coach that's over here just trying to make the best out of all the shit that they give him. And it's just a mess. He's interviewing, defensive coordinators and showing them cut-ups of when he had success against them, not because he wants to hire him, but because he wants to embarrass him. That's the type of shit we were on over the years, which is why we would never win anything. Because we wasting time and we doing stupid shit. This group ain't about that. One vision, it's aligned, one goal to be elite. Hell, even the owner said that. And we ain't up here to try to be okay or to be good. We try to be elite. Anything else would be uncivilized. Dan Quinn's legacy. There was a question about his legacy. And how so many people had good things to say about him when he got this job. And as fans, we can attest to that. All we've heard, I don't think I've heard one negative thing said about Dan Quinn from anybody that's crossed paths with him, was coached by him, coached with him, etc., etc. So it was funny. Our owner, man, we got to have one of the coolest owners in the NFL. Josh Harris, I swear to you, every time I see Josh Harris and I hear him talk, I swear this man is high. I love him. Because he says and does the most random shit. Right? And it's not to be malicious or none of that shit. It's just who he is. Like, he's sort of goofy. I love it because I love to laugh, right? He seems like the type of dude you go out, you're going to have a good time with. So the lady says all of that shit, and it's all good shit. And Dan Quinn starts off by saying, well, I really appreciate you saying that. And then out of nowhere, Josh Harris blurts out, and that's not a plant. Hey. I was weak when he did that. And if you watched the Cat Williams interview on Club Shay Shay, you know he called Kevin Hart a plant. And so that's the first thing that just jumped in my mind, right? It was so random. But anyway, he talked about being a player's coach. And we've heard nothing but good things about him being a player's coach. You've heard from guys like KJ Wright, Logan Paulson, and other players that have played for him who speak nothing but the utmost respect for Dan Quinn and the culture that he creates in a building, the brotherhood in a locker room. He cares about people, right? And one of the things I love that he said is, because I've heard players say this before on different, everybody's got a podcast now. All these players got podcasts. Shit. Players that are actually playing have podcasts. Shit's crazy right now. I mean, Michael Parsons in season is doing some shit with Bleacher Report. Like, I don't want my players doing that shit. Like, are you kidding me? Like, not that it matters, but I don't want my player addressing shit in season. You want to have an off-season podcast? Knock yourself out. But whatever. Everybody's got a podcast. And a lot of these dudes talk about just wanting to know where they stand. All these players just want to know where I fit in. Where do I belong? Just be honest with me. And he's like, a lot of these coaches, a lot of you, oh, it's a numbers game when they cut you. Oh, it's a numbers game. It wasn't you. You didn't do anything wrong. Bullshit. If I didn't do anything wrong, and then you wouldn't be cutting me. You would find a place on this roster for me. Clearly, I wasn't better than the other 4 guys that you kept at that position. Don't tell me it's a numbers game. You could have cut one of those other dudes and kept me. So what did I do wrong? He's like, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to tell you what you need to work on. How are you going to get better if I just tell you you didn't do nothing wrong and it was just a numbers game? That's a soft, easy way out. And he's like, nah, I ain't about that. These dudes get coddled and they get lied to throughout high school into college. And when they get here and when they get with me, I'm going to give them the reals. And that's why people love him. He cares about you. And he's going to tell you when you're doing the right thing. And he's going to tell you when you effing up. He said he's been on over 78 teams. I said, damn, you counted? So he talked about leadership and what it looks like, and how his definition of leadership has evolved. He said when he first started out, leadership to him was being able to lead the team, being able to stand in front of them with a presence and convey a message to them and show them what it was like, to be in front of a team and to be the figure that they could look to for a source of strength. He said as he's evolved in the game, or as he liked to say, as he gained a lot of chrome, right? He said that it changed from being a leader of men to being able to instill in others the ability to lead and to give others a voice, to empower others around him so that they too could showcase leadership qualities. And I think that is a very good assessment of what a leader does. Is he doesn't just show you what he's capable of, but he instills that in you. And that's why when I talk about it, and I say, what is it? One of the definitions of it is when a guy has enough swag that not only does he get you to believe that anytime he's on the field, you got a chance to win, but his swag and his ability is so great that you too start believing, I am good enough to elevate this team. I can elevate this team too. And that's what he talked about. Then he got to the end and he pretty much said, somebody came up with a premise, like, I think it was Candace Buckner, who said, did you think that your age was going to come into play? You see the NFL, it's a copycat league. Everybody's looking for the next young, innovative hire. And did you think your age, he's 53, was going to stop you from potentially getting a job? And he was like, nah, I really didn't see it like that. I really didn't see the age thing being an issue. He's like, two of the coaches that I respect the most, I wouldn't say they retired. He said they retired. I wouldn't say they retired. I would say they didn't get a job. He was talking about Pete Carroll and Bill Belichick. He said both of them were over the age of 70. He said, that's what I'm trying to get to. But he said it ain't got nothing to do with age. He said, yeah, young and shiny, that's the new thing. But really what it boils down to, and he was right, it's offensive versus defensive. By show of hands, who all wanted the offensive coach because we didn't want to have to deal with offensive coordinator issues and having to find a new play caller and this, that, and the third? Raise your hand. Damn, it's a lot of hands up. A lot of damn hands up. Shit is more hands up than they are down. I'm guilty. I didn't want a defensive-minded coach, and I've given you the reasons why. A lot of the league thinks that way, and so it's harder for a defensive guy to get a job. And he was like, look, I wasn't sure if I was going to get the opportunity or not, because there's a lot of people out there that believe offensive guys need the opportunity, especially when you're coming into a situation, and you got quarterback, whatever. He didn't speak about that, but that's what it is. And he said, I'm glad that this opportunity came up about, and it's not about one side of the ball or the other. You got to coach the whole team. And he's right. But that premise still exists of not wanting to have to continuously upgrade your offensive coordinator. Because if you got a coordinator that's doing a great job, eventually somebody's going to come and get him, unless he's a super retread and nobody wants him, or he's not interested in being a head coach. That's so rare, though. If your guy is doing a phenomenal job, somebody's coming to get him. How many times did Norv Turner kill it as a coordinator? Somebody was like, yo, maybe Norv might win it this time. How many times did he get a head coaching job? Feels like he got like 3 or 4 different opportunities to be a head coach. Whatever the case may be. If you're good at your job as an offensive play caller, generally they come in and get you eventually. But to his point, you got to coach the whole team, right? I see a lot of hands. Right? And then he left us with this Matt Ryan quote that I thought was just perfect. Perfect way to end this thing. He said, Matt Ryan told him after the first year, quote, I felt like I got traded, but I went back to the same building, close quote. And he told himself, good, I did a good job. That was the intent. That's what we need in Washington. I need Terry McLaurin to feel like this feels different. I need Jonathan Allen and Deron Payne to be like, yo, Jahan Dotson to be like, yo, this shit feels infinitely different than the way this building felt last year. This doesn't even feel like the same team or organization. We need a flush. Dan Quinn feels like a flush. Adam Peters feels like a flush. Josh Harris is definitely a flush. And you're getting it all at one time. Because really, Harris didn't get to do the things that he wanted to do last year. He really came in with a laissez-faire approach and just kind of observed. They asked him about everybody pretty much coming in at the same time. New owner, new GM, and a new head coach. And that's really what it is. Harris technically isn't brand new. He got there in July, but he's pretty much brand new. This is all new. Last year, we charged that to Snyder's account. I don't know about you. I charged that shit to Snyder's account. This is Harris's first year as owner of the Washington Commanders, if you ask me. So it was an impressive opening salvo. I walked away with so much hope and enthusiasm, but more importantly, I saw the vision for the first time. You know, normally when I walk away from these, I don't see the vision. I'm just motivated. When EB left here, I didn't see a vision. He didn't tell me what he was looking for, what he was going to do. He just told me we were going to collectively drag our asses across the finish line, and he didn't care about stats as a means to doing that. He didn't tell me how we were going to do it. He just told me we were going to collectively drag our asses across the finish line. And he did a lot of smiling and a lot of talking in circles, and we fell for it hook, line, and sinker. But I feel like I can see the vision. I understand what they're looking for. I'm about to do something real quick. Shout out to Miss Perry. You did this, Miss Perry. I didn't do this. You did this. The reason I was running a little bit late, I was actually on time. And I was ready to start. And then I just happened to check my DM inbox before I got on. And Miss Perry had sent me a slew of videos, and I wanted to knock them out before I came on, just in case she sent me something that I could use for the show. Once again, shout out to Miss Perry. And I watched all the videos, and one of them stuck out to me. And remember that Adam Peters wouldn't let Josh Harris or excuse me, wouldn't let Dan Quinn get any of the quarterback talk, right? Well, that didn't stop some of the local media from getting their hands on Dan afterwards. You know, everybody gets a piece. And Scott Abraham, who you know is very aggressive, can be, asked Dan Quinn, and he always asks provocative questions. That's one thing I got to give credit. They're not always appropriate, as we saw with Carson Wentz, and we all jumped on him for it, but he usually asks provocative questions. And I'm going to just say this one right here is for all of the Sam Howell stands out there. NHO is not dead. Not yet. Take a listen.
You've been around football your entire life. You know the quarterback position is one of the most important positions on the field. What do you look at when you see the quarterback position here currently in Washington, and maybe how do you plan to attack that via free agency or the draft?
Yeah, and certainly talent is here also at quarterback. You know, going against, you know, Sam through this year and honestly from a little bit from last year as well, you knew how, you know, talented this player was and the strength and the arm talent and the ability to create, and that's what quarterback play is, you know. Off-schedule plays and get outside the pocket. Not everything is always clean and where you can go. So we're just getting started on the evaluation phase. And so when you're putting a whole program together, there's free agency, there's the draft, and you'll look at all the things, you know, to try to make the team better. But I was certainly impressed by the competitor that Sam is. That jumped out to me, you know, how tough and competitive he is.
Hey! Now look, that could mean something, that could mean nothing. But I just wanted to just hit the nest a little bit, man. Just knock some of those NHO bees out of the nest and just let them start swarming around a little bit, man. Anyway, less about Sam, but did you see the jersey he was holding there? It's a damn shame what they did to Antonio Gibson, man. They already gave his shit away. We know he gone, right? That man was holding the 24 right there. Damn shame what they did to that dog, right? Damn shame what they did to Antonio Gibson. My man Tones is gone already. They done gave his jersey away. Damn. I kid. I know what it was for. I kid. Anyway, let's get to the comment section and see what you guys have to say. Start with Reedy Davis. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, Dave, for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, Lou, with the coaches we have so far, what grade do you give Josh and Adam? I mean, I love the staff that they're assembling already, but it's early for a grade. They've only hired 3 coaches, a head coach and the 2 coordinators. I like all 3 of the hires, but there's so many more coaches left to hire, so it'd be hard. That the grade is incomplete right now. I like all of the hires. There's not a single hire that I don't like. Quinn has definitely won me over because I'm not going to sit here and act like I was in favor of Dan Quinn being the head coach here a week ago. You know, this time last week, we were all dead set on Ben Johnson, and we didn't get shitted on until Tuesday, you know, last week. So we've done a total 180 on Dan Quinn. But I'm excited for him, and I'm rooting for Dan Quinn. I really, truly am. I see y'all talking about 24. I was just joking about Antonio Gibson. It's for the year, right? Like if you watched the Falcons, they had their press conference today with Raheem Morris. They gave him a 24 jersey that said Morris on the back. They just do that for the year. If you go at Ron's presser, his said 20 and it said Rivera, right? Like, don't feed into that. I was just kidding. For some of y'all might be taking it literal, like, oh shit, Gibson really is going down. I'll just play it, man. Who's cooking? Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, I don't even care anymore. We are on the way up, Lou. Just Dan's vibe, speech, all of that. 110% way better than the vibes Ron and company. Than Ron and company. What a time, HTTC. I think part of why I'm so excited is the fact that I can see the vision and I know nothing's blocking it this time. Normally, it's almost like there are blessings there, but they're going to always be infinitely blocked as long as Daniel Snyder was here. You were never going to receive your blessings. There's nothing blocking us from receiving our blessings. If there's some there for us to get, we can receive them. I think that's part of why I'm so excited. King of the Bluegrass, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. King of the Bluegrass writes, does the donation have a high or low carb districts donation? Wow, 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 wow. Waka, 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 waka. Oh. Nice try, King of the Bluegrass. Nice try. John Milstead. Thank you for being, stand up. You are the newest member of the MOBB mob. Y'all know what to do. Show John Milstead some love. Welcome him with open arms. John Milstead, welcome to the squad. Glad to have you. JB, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. JB writes, go Washington Commanders. Lou, everything right now feels different, bro. Do you feel it? I do. I mean, and I told you, I think a part of that is just knowing that, like, ain't no excuses no more. Not like they better win this year. I mean, that's not what I'm saying. Like, there was always a built-in excuse for us as fans. When shit didn't go right, you could always just say, well, you're never going to win when Snyder's here. It's just not going to happen, right? There's no more excuses. And that feels good to know that if shit just doesn't go right, it's not because of some mythical forces at work. Because I believe in that shit. I believe in juju. I believe in karma. I believe what you put in the atmosphere is what you get out of it. I believe in all of that shit. And I do think that there was no way we were going to win as long as Daniel Snyder was our owner. Now that he's not here, it's like this weight has just been lifted off our shoulders as fans. Now we can just go out and root for the team and not feel like you got to make some kind of political statement in terms of the team. Like, I'm not going to the games because I'm not trying to put no money in Daniel Snyder's pocket, right? Like, just little shit like that. One time I said, I'm not buying any memorabilia, none, because I don't want to fund this man's bullshit. Till he starts, doing right by us, I ain't buying no more shit with this team's logo on it that's going to put money in his pocket. Like, I don't have to do that shit no more. If I want to go out and buy a Commander's shirt, hat, sweater, jacket, whatever, I can. If I want to go to a game, I can. If I want to pay for parking, I don't feel bad paying for parking. It just feels different because it is different. We'll see if Dan Quinn works or not. We don't know. But just to know that if the shit don't work, it's just not working because we didn't do a good job, fine. I can live with that. I definitely feel it. John Milstead, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Thank you for being the newest member of the MOBB who writes, just seeing that this team seems to have a vision makes it feel different. And you can see the vision. You can hear them talking about what a commander is supposed to look like, how they're going to get after it, how they're going to try to attack, get players to play faster, to play more physical, to be aggressive, to finish. Things that we haven't done over the last 15 to 20 years consistently. Those kinds of words, that type of effort has been lacking probably since Gibbs 2.0. There haven't been many teams that you can look at and say, man, I'm proud of this team. I'm proud of that team. I remember in 2020 when Rivera first got here, I was proud of that team because even though we sucked and we had no business in the playoffs, they always fought and played hard. And you can get behind that shit. We would always fall behind, and that's the shit that used to piss me off. It almost felt like we never woke up until we were down by 2 or 3 scores. But we never let it just be. We never said, hey, you got us, and it ended up being a 2 or 3 score defeat. We could go through all the games that year that started ugly for us. We were down 17-0 in Ron's first game against Philadelphia. And we scored 27 unanswered points and won that game. That was the MO of that team in 2020, was that they always started out slow. Always. But they always found a way to rally. The next week at Arizona, it was 20-0 at halftime. We made a little run in that game, but we never really threatened Arizona. But we always fought. The Detroit game that year, it's 24-0. We come back, we tied the game at 27. We had a chance to take the lead. The Steelers game, we were down 13-0. Like, I could go on and on, all the games that we trailed by double figures, but we always fought. Even when we didn't win, we were down 20-0 to the Giants and lost the game 20-14 and had the ball 80 million times with a chance to take the lead and just never did. So I think it was 13-0 the first time we played the Giants that year. 20-0 the second time. Both times we had a chance. The first time we actually had the ball, 2-point conversion, went for it and didn't get it and lost. And I think that scarred Ron for the rest of his tenure here. He bitched up on us the remainder of his time here. He caught a lot of flack because he's not Dan Campbell. He doesn't have the resolve or the heart to be able to say, yeah, now I made that decision and I'm standing on business. We lost, but my philosophy is on the road, you go for 2. That's what he told us. After that, he bitched up every single time. That team, I could say I was proud of them because they always fought to the bitter end. I knew they would never quit on me. But I'm trying to be proud of a team for more than just not quitting and not getting your ass beat bad. Oh, you only lost by a little bit. Like, that's a low bar. The vision feels different. Definitely, John. And I can see it. And that makes me feel good. And it also makes me feel even better knowing there's nothing external that we can't see stopping us. Either we get it done because we were good enough or we don't because we weren't. King of the North, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB who writes, Lou, we've heard it all before. Oh, so you Sunshine Anderson now. Heard it all before. Talk is cheap. Win and I'll listen. I'm concerned about Cliff Kingsbury's late season collapse and his ability to adjust in season. Another coach we hope does things differently here. And that's all you can do is take a wait and see approach. You're not wrong. You know, I feel a little bit differently than you. I haven't heard it all before. I haven't heard this particular stuff before. I've heard a lot of things before. I haven't heard anybody come here and talk about establishing an identity and telling us what that identity is. You know, I haven't heard someone talk about, you know, the evolution of their scheme and why they do the things that they do. Like I said, I can see the vision here. You know, I've never really felt like guys have come in here and been totally transparent with us, because a lot of them didn't have the answers. Not that Dan Quinn does, but he seems a lot more sure of himself because he's been through this before and he knows what worked for him before and what didn't. So we'll see. Like you said with Cliff Kingsbury, wait and see approach. We'll see what happens, right? King of the North, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes? If they don't get the second pick right, DQ and company will be gone in 3 years, and we will be talking about another coach's press conference. It's that simple. I don't know if it's that simplistic. I don't know if it's that simplistic or not, but the likelihood of us being back here in 3 years increases exponentially if they don't get the quarterback position right. And we tie that decision at 2 to the quarterback position, but they may figure out another way to fix the quarterback position other than the second pick in the draft. But whatever the case may be, if they don't get quarterback right, then yes, we'll probably more likely than not be back here in 4 years or so, 3 or 4 years from now, having the same conversation. But again, I've already told you I'm going to extend grace, and I'm going to practice what I preach, which is patience and perseverance. And I'm going to allow them to have all the space that they need to do what it is they need to do, and all my support while they're doing it. Until they show me that they're incapable of getting it done, and there's no way that I can try to spin it to believe, I'm going to give them all the room, time that they need, and the space to get this stuff done and turned around. So we'll see what happens. Quarterback will be key. Who are you kidding if you think it's not? Ed B, been a member for 29 months. A wise man once said, "Let's kick ass." HTTC. That was one of his phrases. Kicking ass, kick ass. He's still hat to the back, Dan Quinn, right? Showed up in the building with the hat to the back. All right. Pit Fight Entertainment. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes? The brotherhood vibe between DQ and AP is a difference maker. We about to make some noise around here. That's another thing that is different about this. I know King of the North said he's heard it all before, and, you know, seen one of these, seen them all, right? But this is why it's different. There's never been synergy and synchronicity between front office and staff, right? There's always been a buffer in between the owner and the coach, and you never really knew where that buffer, that team president, that Bruce Allen, where his allegiance lied, right? He was always a snake slithering in the grass, and if you were with him, then you were fine. As long as you were a puppet and you did what he told you to do, he had no issues. The minute you push back against him, now he's going behind your back to the owner, telling him, hey, this dude is out here trying to get us. He's the problem, not us, right? It was always backstabbing and all kinds of shady shit going on. That's not what's happening right now. And we've never seen that. Not in the last 25 years, at least. There's always been some kind of bullshit going on. Always. So to say it's the same, I wouldn't say it's the same, but to your point, King of the North, actions speak louder than words. But to Pit Fight Entertainment's point, there's a brotherhood vibe. There's a synchronicity that exists between DQ, and Adam Peters. And it's that level of trust that you can see them in the bond that they're forming that's going to allow them to be in lockstep with one another to try to recreate what we've seen in San Francisco, what we've seen in Baltimore, what we've seen in Kansas City. That's what they're trying to recreate here. And it starts with the relationship between head coach, GM, and owner. Those three on the same page, you got a chance to win big in this league. Obviously, you got to get the quarterback right, too. All those teams I just named have a quarterback. With the 49ers being an exception to the rule, and now they got Brock Purdy. But they've been to a Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo as well. So, we'll see. Zoe Life, No Life. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, do hard shit with good people. You can't fake this. You can't. I love it. I love that line. I love the permission that he asked for before he said it. I love that we didn't blank it out of the press conference. Let's see him do some hard shit with some good people, because this ain't gonna be easy. That's for damn sure. This is definitely gonna be some hard shit here in Washington. Let's see him do some hard shit. Hopefully they hire a lot of good people and bring in a lot of good players. The one and only Bravo. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, Dan and Adam seem genuinely excited to be together. Pause. DQ and AP seem genuinely excited to work together. They seem like they're going to be joined at the hip in terms of the decision making. They're going to be in lockstep. And again, that's something that we've missed here in Washington since 92, Gibbs 1.0. Really probably 91, I think, was Beathard's last year here. 90, somewhere in there. We just haven't had it. And I know Gibbs and Beathard didn't always agree, but they always made it work. We haven't had any kind of synergy in the front office and the coaching staff. There was time, Jay Gruden has always said, I wanted this player, I wanted that player. They didn't give a shit what I thought. I wanted Preston Smith back. They didn't care. So, like, again, we had our team president go rogue and essentially, with the help from the owner, trade for Alex Smith and didn't tell anybody in the building that he was doing it. Like, what kind of shit is that? You don't even consult with your head coach about the player you're about to give him at the most important position. There's no way you can tell me that this shit is the same. Now, again, the results might be the same. We don't know. We'll see. But sometimes it's not about the results initially. And this is why I said you got to have patience and perseverance, is because sometimes it ain't about the results. It's about the process. If that shit is right and you keep doing it the right way, eventually the results will come. Because when you start trying to take shortcuts and you start trying to do things incorrectly because you want to chase after the quick results, that's when the shit goes awry. And that's what we've been doing for 25 years. We've always looked for the shortcut. We've always looked for the quick fix. We've never wanted to do things the right way. If you do it the right way, repeatedly, over and over and over, it's just like playing blackjack. Sometimes you got to do shit that you know probably isn't going to end well for you, but you got to do it because the odds say that this is the right thing to do. And as long as you stay true to that, eventually you're going to hit. Grande Groove, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, I think it's Zoe Life, not Zoe Life, Haitian slang. Maybe. So if that's the key, why hasn't Zoe told me that? So if that's true, just tell me. I don't know if that's what it is or not. Zoe hasn't said anything. It could be Zoe life, no life. It makes a lot more sense because it rhymes. Now that you say it like that, correct me then. Anyway, Layla Brown, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, "Hi, Louie. After watching DQ's presser, I feel good. I feel great. I feel invigorated as a fan. I felt foolish a little bit because I won't say I wasn't willing to give this a chance. I was open-minded. But when I was on that Ben Johnson train, I had tunnel vision. And a guy like Dan Quinn to me just seemed like the worst decision they could make at the time. So I kind of feel foolish a bit because I was never closed-minded, but I wasn't super receptive to him coming in here and being the next head coach of this team. And, you know, the more I watch this press conference, the more I listened, the more I said, we probably needed a guy for a first-time owner, a first-time GM. You probably needed a guy with experience. Somebody has to be able to say, we shouldn't do it this way because when I did it like this the last time, like nobody would have been able to say that. At least there's somebody in there that can say, hey, no. This didn't work the last time. And Adam Peters can say, well, this did work in San Francisco. And there can be dialogue, right? They can figure out what's the best methodology moving forward and come up with a decision that fits in lockstep and aligns with the vision, right? Feels good. Wilfredo Elias, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, Uncle Q made me laugh. They made me wait, so I didn't answer the first call. Also, proud of the media because I don't think anyone mentioned Ben Johnson. I thought that was funny, too. There were a couple of moments. I forgot the word that Adam Peters used, but he said, Dan Quinn looked at him and said, that's one of them UCLA words right there, right? And they all shared a laugh there. And because that felt like Adam Peters flexing a little bit, right? He didn't have to use that particular word. We'd all heard it before, but that he was flexing his muscles right there, right? His vocabulary muscles. And so they shared a laugh there. And then he talked about when they called him the first time, he didn't pick up. First, Adam Peters said, well, he was playing hard to get a little bit because he didn't pick up when we called him the first time. And he said, I had to make him wait a little bit. I had to make him feel a little something. You know what I'm saying? They made me wait, so I had to make him wait a little bit. That was funny. I don't know. I guess I didn't expect them to bring up Ben Johnson. Why would you bring up another man at his presser? I didn't expect him to do that. So I guess I never thought he would be in the conversation anyway. But Navy Ramjet, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, Lou, hope the fam is great. Likewise. Really appreciate you. I heard a shared vision today. First time in a long time. Tough, explosive. You'll know you played us. Not using rebuild word. You know, some of that resonated more, you know, for some than others. Like, you know, the whole recalibration versus rebuilding. That didn't really move me, but the shared vision, the toughness, the physicality, the explosiveness, playing fast and physical, creating turnovers. These are all hallmarks of a Dan Quinn coach team, whether he's the coordinator or the head coach. And so I just feel good about that. I feel really good about that. The track record speaks for itself. Now, what doesn't speak for itself is the defense being great when he's the head coach. But he said he's learned, so he's going to have to show us he's learned, right, in that regard, right? So there's a lot of good, things to take away from this. But again, to King of the North's point, this is all words. We need action. And it's about time as a fan base, we be about that action, boss. So they got to go out and show and prove. The one and only Bravo. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. The one and only Bravo writes, this fan base is ready to explode. Pause. Don't let us start winning. Lord, please let us start winning. LOL. Hashtag HTTC. I already told you, for a long time, the football gods wouldn't allow nice things to happen. For me in particular, because they already know I don't know how to act. They already know. They already know. If we start winning, I will be insufferable. Because what you got to understand is, one, I'm not even super braggadocious. That's not even my style, but it's 30 years of pent-up frustration that I got inside of me that I'm ready to get out. And people have been laughing at me for probably 20 to 25 of those years. Because they weren't laughing 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, shit, even 6 or 7 years removed from the last Super Bowl. They weren't laughing then. It wasn't until you got into that Snyder era, right? You got into it about 10, 11, 12 years away from the Super Bowl, and you're like 2, 3 years into Snyder that they started to realize, hey, y'all ain't shit. And then you realize Snyder ain't shit, and you know, that's when it got ugly. And that's when you started to realize, no, we really ain't shit. And then you became the butt of the jokes. At first you were laughing. Now they're laughing at you, not with you. And I got a lot of pent up frustration and aggression to let out. And Lord knows if we start winning and winning big, it could get ugly for some people, man. And, you know, I always promote, don't show your ass, act with class. I need to be preaching that to myself. I really do. As I'm telling you, if we start winning, it's going to get ugly for some people. And it shouldn't be that way. Derek B. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, figure it out leads to effing it up. Experience. And you, I will say, were one of the few, if not the only person. And there weren't many that were echoing your sentiments of, hey, I know you really wanted Vrabel. That was your guy. But you realized pretty early on Vrabel wasn't going to be the guy. They never even interviewed him. There was never, ever any interest in bringing him here. And we know why. And we've talked about it already. But when we were all looking at Ben Johnson and Mike McDonald, you were like, bro, give me a coach that's already done it before. Y'all running from that. I'm running towards that type of coach. So you were all in on Dan Quinn from the word go. And I got to give you your credit. Because none of us were. Most of us weren't. Video channel. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, it's so damn refreshing to see a legit GM front and center like AP. It feels good to know that we got someone that is respected, but I always, first of all, and I think you're right, and I think he is going to be exceptional for us, but he's got to do it here first. You know what I'm saying? Like, nobody cares other than us about Adam Peters' track record. I can't take that to LB or Bad Dog or Law or any fan of another fan base and try to sell them on why it's different. They don't give a shit about that. He's going to actually have to do it. Some of our fan base, you know, and rightfully so. I'm not mad at anybody that's like, yeah, that's cool what he did in San Francisco. But he ain't never been the guy, and this is his opportunity. Now I want to see what he does. Touche. But it's refreshing just to see somebody with the level of experience, still so young, the track record that precedes him, but also being every organization that he was in previous to this one was successful. The only place he didn't win a Super Bowl was San Francisco, and if they win on Sunday, he'll get a Super Bowl ring because he's a part of that team as well. And so every place he would have been, he would have won a Super Bowl. All he knows is winning. This Adam Peters guy that we have. Started his career in New England, won Super Bowls there, went to Denver, won a Super Bowl there, and now San Francisco 49ers, we know what they've done in turning that program around. And if they win on Sunday, he'll get a Super Bowl from them as well. And I'm hoping that it continues everywhere he goes. He gets a Super Bowl, and the next stop is Washington. So we'll see. Feels good, though. JB, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, Lou, when I sent that super chat, I didn't know you felt the same way. I've been a fan since 1975, and I remembered Joe Gibbs 1.0 presser, and I was like, who is this guy? And you just never know. You know, you just never know. And I'm pretty sure back then you had no clue. And after he started 0-5, you're like, this guy's a clown, right? Because he was unknown. And it, you know, back in those days, it's not like how it is now. Everything is in real time. Bam, bam. Everything is in real time. So you can't hide anything. We're all over everything. In those days, you didn't find something out until you got it from the news. You either had to be listening to the radio or you had to turn into the news to get information. Or you had to read it in the newspaper. So there wasn't like this information highway where you could go and find out, hey, where did this Joe Gibbs fella come from? Somebody had to tell you, you had to read it. You had to watch TV to learn, oh, he came from the Chargers. You know, he was over there with them. He's from the Air Coryell system. That shit wasn't common knowledge like it is today. So it was definitely a different time. Definitely a different time. King of the North, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, funny how head coaches like McVay, Andy Reid, and Kyle Shanahan can manage calling plays and running a team. I think it's a red flag that DQ isn't calling plays on defense. I don't think that's for everybody to do. I prefer my guys watching the game, and if you know that's not who you are, like Andy Reid doesn't call plays anymore. And he's a part of that process, but he doesn't actually call the plays anymore, technically speaking. Well, he's a part of that process. But to each its own. Like, I don't think you can say that somebody's not successful because they don't call plays. Mike Tomlin doesn't call plays. John Harbaugh doesn't call plays. Like, now I know these guys haven't won anything recently, but they've won Super Bowl. They've won a Super Bowl before, and they're very successful, and their teams win quite often, right? I don't think you have to call plays to be successful. I think there's a level of comfort for everyone. And if you're comfortable calling the plays, you want to be responsible for the offense. Or that's just, and honestly, with the offensive guys in particular, that's just something they enjoy doing a lot of times. Like, that's the fun part of their job, is to call offensive plays. So they don't want to give that up unless they have to. I think it takes a lot for a coach to admit, I don't need to call the plays. I need to let somebody else do that so I can focus on managing the team. Because at your core, you want to be the one calling the plays. Because if something goes wrong, you want to be able to say, that's on me. I did that. Because when your job is on the line, the last thing you want to do is be leaving your job status in the hands of somebody else. So it takes a lot for somebody to say, no, I'm going to let y'all do it. I don't think you can just point to the coaches that are having success and say they're able to call plays and him not being able to do it is a red flag, especially when those guys that you all named are offensive guys. It's not the same for defensive guys. Robert Saleh doesn't call his plays. Now, I'm not saying they've been super successful in New York, but trust me, if they got Aaron Rodgers healthy, they're going to win games in New York with the Jets. I think it's different for a defensive guy, to be honest with you. It's easier for them to relinquish play calling responsibilities than it is an offensive guy, because they enjoy calling the plays, and that's their baby. Calling plays is their baby. Kevin O'Connell, Kevin Stefanski, all of these young coaches, they want to call plays. What did Cliff Kingsbury say? Or we've heard somebody say he said, I just want to call plays. That's fun. Calling plays is fun. All the other shit, I'm good. I don't want to deal with that. I just want to call plays. Because that's fun. King of the North. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, apparently I'm in the minority, having listened to the whole presser and came away feeling worse about DQ. He's long-winded and puts more emphasis on motivation and relationships than X's and O's, in my opinion. Yeah, you definitely in the minority, because I couldn't agree less with that statement that you just made. Because I think the worst coaches are the ones that focus solely on X's and O's and not relationships and motivation. In this league, you're more likely to get further with guys that establish relationships and motivation than X's and O's. I can point to a lot of coaches that X's and O's wise are brilliant, but they don't have the people skills. We just talked about one in Ben Johnson. He lacks people skills. We've heard it from various sources already. And the fact that he thought it was okay to send a text message while the team was in flight shows you that. Whatever the case may be, you can be a brilliant football mind and not be a leader of men. And you're not going to win. I'd rather have the dude that's not a great X's. Dan Campbell is not a great X's and O's guy. That's why you find other people who are, so you can just do the motivational thing and be a leader. There's nothing wrong with doing that. I couldn't disagree with you more. Adam Gase was excellent with the X's and O's. He's not even in the league anymore. Josh McDaniels, excellent with the X's and O's. He's not even in the league anymore. Like, that's one of your worst takes, if you ask me. That's one of your worst takes. And me and you are usually in lockstep. You know, and even when I disagree with you, I can see where you're coming from. That one is a little bit off on me. That one's a little bit that one's a little bit out in right field somewhere for me. It sounds like you just don't like Dan Quinn and you're trying to find reasons not to like him. That's what that sounds, and that's not what I'm used to hearing from you. King of the North, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. King of the North writes, the Shanahan run game kicked his ass this year. If that was what he was looking for in an OC, then why not get someone who runs that? Dallas had zero issues with bland-ass shotgun runs. That's a great question. I would have preferred he gone that route for an offensive coordinator, but we've gone down that road. That's not what he wanted to do. He's established a relationship with Cliff Kingsbury. Feels like his offense works in the NFL, and it did work in the NFL. One season it did, and you could see the growth in 2020. And 19, it was okay. He had a lot that came in and was all new, and so you saw them have to make changes, and they did. 2020 it got much better, and in 2021 we saw them really hit their stride. 2022 wasn't great. Obviously, Kyler goes down, and that was the end of that, and he ended up getting fired. But I think it was less to do about him being an offensive play caller and more to do with him having to handle the entire team. I don't think he was built for that. At that time, he might get better down the road and look to do it again. And similar to Dan Quinn, say, all right, here's what I've learned. But, we'll see. I don't disagree with that one. Like, I would have preferred one of those 49ers dudes personally from that Shanahan U. But that's not what they decided to do. That's not what he wanted to do. So I'm going to give this a run. I don't know if this is how you say it or not, but Zoe life, no life. It makes sense. It rhymes. I would think that's what that is. Zoe life, no life. Makes a lot more sense. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, Lou, where did you hear Raheem called us? So I read an article. Miss Perry might have sent it to me. If not her, somebody else added me. And it was a SI.com article written by Albert Breer. It's there. I can put the link in the description, or I think one of the mods drop the link to that article in the comment section, if you would please, so that Zoe and everybody else that wants to read that article can. But it's a good quick read. It's about a 5-minute read. Really, Albert Breer walked us through the entire process of the hire of Dan Quinn and how everything went down. And then, and that's how I was able to talk about Raheem Morris calling us on the phone. So he had all the intricate details of the inner workings of how all of this shit went. So it's a good read. He says, 2, does Cliff Kingsbury wanted a 3-year deal? He has no head coach ambition. Also, DQ initially didn't call plays after Super Bowl year. And they went back to the playoffs and was a Julio Jones toe being in bounds away from beating Philadelphia, and the Eagles never winning the Super Bowl. But at the end of the day, you just got to know who you are. I don't know. So I'm sticking to my guns on this one. Right now, Cliff Kingsbury may have no ambition to be a head coach. I think with success and people, because nobody was checking for him. So he's just trying to get back in the league and be relevant again, get back to what made football fun, because clearly being a head coach and the way it ended in Arizona was not fun. And we could all see it playing out on the field. And I think he wants to just get back to having fun. And then I think that may lead to him wanting to be a head coach again. But we'll see. Could be wrong about that. I don't know if the 2-year versus the 3 years suggest anything. I always assume, and I'm wrong, I guess, about this. I always assume coordinators got longer deals than 2 or 3 years. I didn't realize their deals were a lot shorter than the head coach. But it makes sense because if their deals, and I don't know if this is true or not, I don't know if their deals are fully guaranteed like the head coaches are. But if it is, then that would make sense why a team wouldn't want to give you a 3rd year versus 2 years. But I don't know the inner workings of what assistants are paid, how their contracts work. This is all news to me. I've never known the length of a assistant's deal. I've never had to think about it. I just always assume if the head coach gets a 5-year deal, then the offensive coordinator he brings in gets a 5-year deal. That's what I always assume. But clearly, I was wrong about that. Christopher McLaughlin, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, Chris, thank you once again for your generosity. As always, truly do appreciate you. Who writes, hey, Lou, hope all is well with you and the fam. Likewise, as always. Says 2 questions. 1, how do you see Quinn handling intangibles, timeouts, clock management, and challenges compared to previous leadership, and why? 2, how do you see Mike linebacker position being addressed? Free agency, draft, and with whom? As far as him and his game management is concerned, I guess we'll find out together. I would hope that he's learned over his time, whether it was as a coordinator with Pete Carroll in Seattle, as a head coach in Atlanta, or watching Mike McCarthy butcher some shit in Dallas, that he'd be really good at it. He's going to be given every resource he needs here. Eugene Shin being here should help with all of that stuff too, you would like to think. And again, it's not like Eugene Shin's going to be in his ear telling him what to do, when to do it, et cetera, et cetera. But you'd like to think that they'll put together a team or at least have meetings about, like that's what I love about Dan Campbell is like he already established to his staff, this is what we're going to do. This is who we're going to be. Certain situations, we'll err on the side of caution if it's a little too far. But if we even remotely close, we going for it. Like, there ain't nothing to talk about. I would hope that he can establish some sort of mindset pattern that the players understand this is who we're going to be, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to go out and execute. As far as challenges are concerned, those are tough. We get better angles a lot of times and a lot faster than they do on the field. Like, you got somebody upstairs that should be getting to look at this stuff and being able to tell you when you should challenge, when you shouldn't. But we're at home, we're getting the replays immediately, right? And the other team knows a dude might have stepped out of bounds, might have dropped the ball. Let's hurry up, get on the line, and snap the ball. And you got to make a split-second decision. How important of a play is it? Is it worth the challenge? If I don't win, am I in a position to burn a timeout, et cetera, et cetera? A lot of moving parts. But we'll see. I don't really actually know from a game management standpoint how good or bad he was in Atlanta. And obviously you don't get to see those things when you're a coordinator. You're not involved in those decisions. So I guess we'll be finding that out. Whether he was already good at it and he's gotten even better, or he wasn't as good the first time and maybe he's gotten better. You would hope he's gotten better. We'll see. As far as how do you see the Mike linebacker position being addressed in free agency or the draft, and with whom? I don't know. I think there are going to be some options available in free agency that are going to be intriguing, to say the least. Do they see those options as viable and the fit that they're looking for right now versus a guy in the draft? I'm about to start my draft process. I forgot once again who told me about the caddy cut-ups, but I finally got access to it and it's legit. So I wanted to thank whomever it was that sent me in that direction. Really appreciate that assist. So I'm about to start my process. And if you're a part of the mob, you're going to go on this journey with me, because we're going to be looking at some all 22 cut-ups of some of these prospects and kind of getting a feel for some of these guys, especially at the quarterback position. We're really going to go through that position in particular with a fine-tooth comb. And I want y'all to come along for the journey. So if you're a part of the mob, if you want any parts of this, tap in. But I don't really know if this is a deep draft at inside linebacker. So I can't say right now. We'll find out here shortly, though. Guess what? Free agency is right around the corner. Literally in a month from now, maybe a little over a month from now, the start of the league year happens and free agency hits, and we'll know. We'll know. They're going to do something. Trust me, they're not going to roll with what we got. I can assure you of that. The Big Bad Wolf Beatty. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, I know where EB's favorite seat in the car is. I know where EB's favorite seat is in the car and his favorite gun. Now he has the free time to use both to find his everlasting buckshot damn mind. Now get the F out of DC. Sorry, Lou. Like we don't gotta be mean to EB on the way out. We don't have to we don't have to get nasty with him. Hey. My guy Tones would call him milk dud head and all. Like, we don't have to do all of that. Buckshot, damn mind. We don't gotta chastise the man on the way out. He already looking for work. That's already bad as is. I hope that he can go back to Kansas City. Normally, that's usually the standard operating procedure. When you can't get work, they open up a space for you, create an opportunity for you to come back home. Hopefully, they'll do the same for Eric Bieniemy. Y'all are terrible, man. King of the Bluegrass. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. King of the Bluegrass writes, I think this might be a double up. Might be a triple up. Double up. Who writes, my takes from the press conference. Optimism with reality-based thinking, patience and acceptance of gradual steps to excellence through reasonable thinking, music to my ears. There was a lot of admission to, hey, look, it's going to take some time, but we understand that y'all want to win. So I'm not going to hit you with the Rivera, hey, it's going to take 3-4 years, because you ain't trying to hear that shit. But I also want you to know and understand that this ain't going to happen overnight either. So I did like that. I heard a lot of the same things, King of the Bluegrass. Metaphor. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Who writes, not circling our name no more. Gonna need to underline it. That's the same shit. I mean, at the end of the day, I want them looking at our game and saying, hey, that's going to be a tough one. I think we could get them, but I ain't sure. Like, that's all I'm looking for. Like, when people see our name, they circle that shit as a win every time. And if they don't beat us, they're disappointed. I remember talking to those two Detroit dudes from Detroit Talk Sports or whatever the name of their channel was a couple years back when we played them in 2022 in week 2. And they fully expected to beat us. Remember, the year before, Detroit was 3-13-1. And they fully expected to beat us despite them being 13-3-1 the year prior. They fully expected to beat Washington. And I was like, what? You guys are ass. Like, we were looking at them like food and they were looking at us like food, and they ate. They ate good against us. And then the part that really sucked is they didn't win another game for the next 5 weeks. They started out that season 1-6, and we were the only win that they had. Now they did turn it around eventually, and they went 9-8 that season. But they were 1-6, and we were the one win. And that's what I'm saying is even the teams that shouldn't be looking at us like food are licking their chops with their napkin tucked in their shirt, with their fork and their knife ready to eat. That's the shit that we got to put a cease to. DJ23, thank you for a super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, it sounds like we're getting a Quinn's plan shirt. Nah. We ain't getting one of those. You ain't got to worry about. I'm out of that game. You ain't got to worry about that. Big Money Sonny, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Big Money Sonny, thank you for being a member of the MOBB, writes, nah, Lou, you need that Wild Goose jersey, LOL. I remember you talking about buying one of those. Did you actually purchase a 37 Wild Goose jersey? That's epic if you did. The goose is loose. JP, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, JP, writes, after listening to DQ, I'm coming around on him. That's the guy we need to turn us around. I'm a little nervous we may pass on QB, though. I don't think we're going to pass on quarterback. I still think we're taking a quarterback at 2, but his comments and, the air raid with Cliff Kingsbury, which seems more coincidental than anything else now, listening to Dan Quinn, but who's to say that might have been intentional. It all leads to don't quite close the book on Sam Howell just yet. I said yesterday that the percentage was at 7. Now it's at 9. I don't see it getting much higher than that, but now it's at 9. It might make it to 10. It might. It's not getting much higher than that. I firmly believe they're going to draft a quarterback at 2. Firmly believe they're going to draft a quarterback. Spence Kalis, been a member for 17 months. Really appreciate you, who writes, I want dogs, not Eagle Scouts, Louie. We are back. We've been asking for dogs for a very long time here. And, what we've gotten are guys that grew up with military families and backgrounds that you could be proud of, yet still managed to get in trouble by racing on city streets. But they wanted guys that came from military backgrounds, right? Because that was important. Good, clean, wholesome young men is what we were trying to get here in Washington. I'm not saying that you can't have both, a guy that's really good, clean, wholesome off the field and still a damn good football player, but you need some dudes that are a little rough around the edges. Dre Greenlaw is a head case. One of those dudes that you like, bro, stop getting 15-yard unsportsmanlike conduct, personal foul penalties, etc., etc. But he's a dog, and you're willing to take some of those because you know what he can do. You need a couple of those dudes. A little rough around the edges. Might be missing a screw or two. We ain't had one of those in a minute. See if we start getting some of those dudes who can just flat out play ball. And that's what it's about. Can you play ball or not? Fat American, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Fat American writes, after today's press conference, DQ had me wanting to tackle obesity. That's how hyped I was. It's nice to see a well-spoken coach at the helm. It's been a while. So what led to DQ's demise in Atlanta? We will be tackling that on Wednesday. We will do a deep dive. I think there were a number of factors, but we're going to get to the root of the cause on Wednesday. And while I'm here, programming note. Thursday, I'm getting the squad together. The Commander Kings are back like cook crack. That's right. Rico, Ed, Rio, myself here, Louie T Network, Thursday night, 8:30 p. You know where to be. We getting it in. All right. So adjust your schedules accordingly. We'll be live, getting everybody's take on this whole entire process, what they think of the hire or hires, and how they're feeling about this team moving forward. We'll all be here chopping it up here on the Louie T Network. So put that on your calendars, if you will, please. So be on the lookout for that on Wednesday. I'll have something for you there as we deep dive. King of the Bluegrass, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. King of the Bluegrass writes, if Washington did not take QB at 2 and decided to take Marvin Harrison Jr. or trading the pick, viewing the decision in the moment, do you think it would be a mistake? I'll be able to answer that more. I'll be able to answer that more confidently in about 2 weeks, maybe even sooner, after I've had a chance to really watch these quarterbacks, which I'm about to start doing. So, because if I feel like one of these dudes is legit, then I think it is a mistake. If I watch these dudes and I'm like, I just don't see it, then, and even if they disagree and they still take one, I'm cool with it, right? Because you get this high in the draft and you got a shot, you shoot it. But if they decide this ain't even a shot worth taking, remember, and I can't stress this enough, back in 2017, when the 49ers first made the organizational shift to Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch, and Adam Peters, they had the number 2 pick in the draft, just like we do. And Mahomes and Watson and Trubisky were all available, and the 49ers didn't have a quarterback. They needed a quarterback. They did not take a quarterback. They instead traded back from 2 to 3, allowed the Bears to come up and take Mitchell Trubisky. We could do the same exact thing, still get a quarterback. They didn't take a quarterback. They took the defensive lineman, Solomon, from Stanford, and they passed on quarterback. Now, Kyle wanted Kirk Cousins from Washington, and when he didn't get Kirk Cousins, his fallback plan was Jimmy Garoppolo. He didn't want a rookie. I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen now, but just understand that that's where Adam Peters came from. That's the decision that they made when they first got to San Francisco. That doesn't mean that's the decision they're going to make here. But understand, it was the exact same scenario. And they opted to trade back, pick up picks, and not take a quarterback. They could do the exact same thing here and still take a quarterback, or they could do the exact same thing here and not take a quarterback. So those options exist. And there's a track record of Adam Peters being a part of a group that did that. So just keep that in mind. I don't know if I think it will be a mistake. I'll be able to answer that question, in a week or two. King of the North, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. King of the North writes, obviously, I don't care for the DQ hire, and I think the Cliff Kingsbury hire was made out of desperation. I don't care what they say. That being said, I love this team, and I hope they get us to a Super Bowl. Just won't get hype until I see wins. And I don't blame you for that. You don't have to explain yourself about not believing the hype, because for years we've been sold dreams here, and it's led us to where we are now over and over and over again. Selling hope in the offseason. That's what we've done best over the last 25 years now. Again, this is a little bit different because of the circumstances, but you're not alone. You're not the only person that feels that way. So, and I've already said this, the universal language within the fan base is winning. Nothing else will unite the fans as one. Win. That's how you get everybody on the same page. Big Money Sonny. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, what does Smoke Newports think about us now? Oh, well, LB's was laughing at us when we didn't get Ben Johnson. So that's going to be the running joke. Everybody's going to try to fry us. Then we hired a retread, so they're going to laugh at us about that. So, again, I don't expect anybody to buy into what we're selling. And I'm not going to try to convince anybody about what we're doing over here. I'm going to just keep quiet, and I'm going to try to sneak up on people. I'm not trying to tell nobody nothing. I'm trying to show everybody what we about. The time for talking is over for me. I'm ready. I'm about that action, boss. So I don't even know what, this first year is going to look like, to be honest with you. Still waiting to see what the rest of the hires look like. Still waiting to see, what they decide to do. Free agency. Dan Quinn talked about the first thing they have to do is take care of in-house, figure out, what players fit what they're trying to do, guys that they think can be a part of the solution moving forward. And then you turn your attention to outside the building. So Twin D, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Twin D, thank you for being a member of the MOBB, writes, hey, LT, seeing how Dallas let Jabril Cox go and he ended up with us still unused, do you think he has any shot with Quinn at the helm? I don't know if that changes. I mean, Quinn wouldn't play him in Dallas. Didn't see a need for him in Dallas. Now, they had some studs and they had more athletes over there on that side of the ball in Dallas than we do. So maybe Quinn, thought he could play, but just not good enough to be able to crack the lineup there. Whereas here, we don't have the same caliber of athletes. Maybe he gets an opportunity, or maybe Quinn just doesn't think he's that good of a football player, which is why he ended up on the practice squad repeatedly. Whatever the case may be. We'll see. Only one way to find out. Big Money Sonny, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Big Money Sonny, writes, Ron saw that Super Bowl post and got excited thinking he was going to coach again. Remember when we were afraid of that we would lose Milk Dud after the season was done? Again, where's Smoked Newports? I remember talking about if things went well, we'd have to find another coordinator. But you want that problem because that means things went well. Like, I want Cliff Kingsbury to have to turn down opportunities or take an opportunity should it arise. Because if it does, that means he's killing it here in Washington. No one's going to hire you, especially if you're a retread, if you're not having success. You've got to be having tremendous success to get another opportunity. Say what you want about Dan Quinn. The last game wasn't ideal. It left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. But make no mistake about it. You don't go 12-5 3 years in a row without playing some sort of defense. They were spectacular on defense most of the time, especially creating turnovers, and that wasn't by accident. You don't get jobs in this league by being mediocre, unless your name's Adam Gase. So if EB had gotten a job, it would have meant that Sam Howell had turned out to be really good and we would have won some football games. Same thing's going to exist with Cliff Kingsbury. If he gets a job, it's because we turned out really good. And he did a hell of a job with the offense. Twin D, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Twin D writes, double up, thank you for doubling up first and foremost. Who writes, I once had an idea that I'd like to see a collage video of your facial expressions after each first and second round picks over the first 5 years, over the last 5 years, rather. Somehow I think your facial reactions might be different this year. I've had some intriguing ones, to say the least. I remember the Jahan pick was puzzling. I remember having to process that one because we didn't mention Jahan Dotson's name not one time throughout the process. not once. And for him to be the pick, it was just like, oh, Jahan Dotson. And then all of my work that I'd done in the pre-draft process and all that came rushing to me, and I was like, snap out of it, bro. He's a good football player. What are you tripping about? We just didn't talk about it, right? And I remember somebody saying, bro, you should have seen your face after Jahan got drafted. And I went back and watched, and there was like a look of kind of bewilderment, like, Jahan Dotson? Almost like I had never heard his name before. Like, what? Forbes, I wasn't tripping because I had mocked him, but I was disappointed because I didn't expect Christian Gonzalez to be on the board, and I was sure we were going with Gonzalez. So my face might have been crazy for that pick. The Chase Young pick is going to be easy because I expected that, and that's what I wanted. Jamin Davis is probably going to be interesting, but I predicted that, so I don't know if I was going to be super disappointed there. It would be interesting to take a look at some of those facial expressions. That would be interesting, actually. Grande Groove, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, EB equals extremely buns. That it did. And also want to say thank you, Grande Groove. I think it is Zoe Life, No Life. I think you were right there. Really appreciate that. Fat American, been a member for 21 months. Really appreciate you for being a member for that long, almost at the 2-year mark. Fat American writes, you hear Kyle Shanahan being pumped for us? Of course. Well, first of all, Kyle didn't have a grudge against Washington. He had a grudge against Dan Snyder and Bruce Allen in particular. Once those two were no longer here, the grudge is now lifted. He has no animosity towards Josh Harris. He has no animosity towards the organization as a whole. He hated how they did his dad, right? And him and everybody else that was there. So, and then we got his guy, Adam Peters. And now we got his other guy, Dan Quinn. So yeah, he's pumped for us. I wouldn't think any other way. I don't think he would feel any other way, right? Relevant Jesse, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Relevant Jesse writes, do you think Caleb would be better on a team with a hard-ass head coach? From what you know about DQ, would he be able to be the role model Caleb needs? I don't know if role model is what, I would be looking for Caleb Williams. Dan Quinn would be an excellent coach for him because Caleb, first of all, he's not a bad, there's this narrative like he's some kind of bad kid or he's troubled or something. Like he's not. He likes to be around energy, likes young coaches. He's made that abundantly clear. There's not too many coaches in the league. Now that Pete Carroll's no longer in the league, you're not going to find many coaches more energetic than Dan Quinn. There's a couple of dudes that come to mind. Sean McVay is probably at the top of the list. When he gets pumped up, he's running down the sidelines, all that good stuff. But there aren't many guys that's more pumped up than Dan Quinn. We've seen him in the press box of the Cowboys games. They, make a big play, get a pick six. He's going crazy. He's an energetic guy. And Caleb wants to be around that. But I think Quinn would be a great coach for him. This would be a great spot for him, to be honest. But I don't think he's going to end up here. Joe Rockhead, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, football gods say, Lou, if you stay humble till the bye week, I will bless your team for years to come. And you too can have nice things. When is the bye week, man? We've had the latest bye one can possibly have each of the last 2 years. I know for a fact that's not going to happen this year. How long is the bye? I'm torn because on one hand, I'm like, I need to be humble. On the other hand, I'm like, man, F that. F being humble. But you know, it comes back around 10 times worse when you're not humble. You better win if you're not going to be humble. Because if you don't, we all know what happens then. But I'm a big boy. I can take it because I can dish it out. So I don't know, man. It's a fine line you walk. It's a fine line you walk. Fat American, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Fat American writes, EB equals exponentially, but hey, again, EB is no longer here. Why are we still railing on this man? Right? This is one of those situations where don't show your ass, act with class. All right. This is one of those situations. Just let EB go on about his business. It didn't work here. And I got no malice towards that man, no vitriol for him. I wish him nothing but the best. But he had to pack his things and go. So we don't need to continue to beat that man up. He's already down. We don't have to kick him anymore. We don't have to kick him. Okay. Metaphor, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for double up. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, how about a DQ's crew shirt? Trademarked it. Hey, I'm gonna let you have that. Go ahead and knock yourself out, man. Knock yourself out. I'm out of the business. I'm out. I got. I'm done. Relevant Jesse, stand up. You are the newest member of the MOBB. Relevant Jesse, really, truly appreciate you. Mob, y'all know what to do. Show Relevant Jesse some love. Welcome him with open arms and let Relevant Jesse know how we do it here in the MOBB. Relevant Jesse, welcome to the squad. Glad to have you. Miggy, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Miggy writes, what's up, Lou? What's up, Miggy? Who writes, I heard Cliff is in gun 90 to 80% of the time ousting EB. Could that be because Murray is 5 foot tall? Also, two cut one, J-Ron Curse, UFA, Defoe, Cam Curl. I don't know if I'm cutting either one to pick up J-Ron Curse. I don't love J-Ron Curse. Now, Quinn might be extremely comfortable with him. So might Joe Witt Jr., and they may bring him on board, but I'm not cutting either one of those dudes. Now, Cam is he's a free agent. You don't have to cut him, just don't re-sign him. But if you telling me one of them has to go, I'm sticking with my two dudes, Defoe and Cam Curl. But again, they know J-Ron Curse. They may decide to keep him. They may decide to bring him on board rather. And remember, Defoe is still on the contract. Cam Curl is not. So it would be a pretty easy decision for them if they decided to bring J-Ron Curse on. Just let Cam Curl walk. And it'll cost you a lot less, I would think, depending on what Cam Curl is asking. Here's the thing that you have to understand with players is they'll take less money to go elsewhere if they don't think they're being respected by their current club. I've seen dudes do it all the time. You know, they balk at the X amount of dollars only to realize that it ain't really shit out here for them. So they ended up taking a lot less to go play somewhere else, but it's about the principle of it. Sometimes you mismanage your market. You think you're going to get more than what you really are going to get. That's what happened to Drew Tranquil this past offseason. That's how he ended up in Kansas City. That's what happened to Jaron Reed one year with Seattle. Got pissed off, ended up in Kansas City, only to realize this Kansas City shit ain't what I thought it was, and ended up going back to Seattle. You know, the grass ain't always green on the other side, but that's what happened to Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, right? He got a deal from Philadelphia that turned out to be better than the deal he ultimately got on the free agent market, but he thought he was worth more, and he thought he would command more. And then when he went out there and saw that they won't shit for him, he signed a 1-year deal. And the Eagles were like, bro, we was giving you more money than that, and we was giving you a multi-year deal. But he thought he was worth more than that to Philadelphia, and that they were lowballing. So he was willing to take less to go to Detroit to prove a point. Cam might be feeling the same way, like, hey, I feel like I'm a guy that deserves to be paid. I did it the right way here. And I feel like this is my worth. Y'all either pay me this or I'm walking. We're not going to put the franchise tag on him. So we'll see. We'll see. That'll be an interesting situation. As far as Cliff Kingsbury is concerned, yes, he is gun-based. His offense of choice is the air raid attack. And so by default, 90% of his offense is going to be based out of the gun, run included. So, yeah, if your stomach is weak and you can't take a ton of shotgun offense, including the run game, this offense ain't for you. This offense ain't for you. Twin D, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Twin D writes, am I wrong in feeling good about the fact that even if we draft a quarterback, we'll still have Sam Howell as a reliable backup or even starter when needed? No, I think that's how most of us feel. Even the ones that feel like they might be making a mistake. I don't feel that way. But even the ones that feel like they might be making a mistake by drafting a quarterback. Maybe that tune changes after I watch them. But right now, you're this high, you got to take a quarterback. And Sam will be here. Sam will be here. And I still think Sam can play. And I already told y'all that. So we'll see what happens. But I don't think you're wrong in feeling that. I think most fans feel good about Sam Howell still being here. I feel the same way I felt about Taylor Heineke when he was here. Like, give me Taylor Heineke as a backup. Because I know when he come in, some shit going to happen. Whether good or bad, something going to happen. But Taylor's going to come in and you could do a hell of a lot worse than Sam Howell as a backup quarterback. Please. A lot of teams would kill to have Sam Howell as their backup quarterback. Joe Rockhead, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Joe Rockhead writes, breaking news, Trey Quinn jersey sales spiking. Trey Quinn. That's a blast from the past. It's got Quinn on the back. It ain't 24, right? What was Trey Quinn? 16, right? Wasn't he 16? I think he was 16. It ain't got 24 on it, but it say Quinn, right? I wonder if they still sell. You might be able to find a Trey Quinn jersey at Marshall's or some shit. Somewhere, a Ross. There's no way you'll be able to find a Trey Quinn jersey. Were they ever even selling those things? King of the Bluegrass. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, during the Jahan pick, I thought your screen froze. I remember being speechless for the first 7 to 10 seconds after the pick was made. Because I had to process it. I didn't really know who we were going to pick. I forgot who we were banging the table for at that time. But most of the guys that we had talked about were already gone. So I don't know what I was expecting because Kyle Hamilton had already been picked. Obviously, the Saints came up and took Chris Olave. His teammate, Wilson, had already been taken. The Falcons had already taken Drake London, right? So all the guys that I think envisioned them taking were already taken at that time. I don't really know. I'd have to go back and watch to see what we were saying. But I don't know what we were expecting at that pick. I just think we were caught off guard because we never mentioned. I broke him down and I said he was my 4th rated receiver in that year's draft class. So we took him. I think he was the 5th receiver off the board. So I was like, this is right where he should have been coming off the board if you are falling in line with the receivers that have already been taken, because London had already gone, Wilson had already gone, Olave had already gone. Williams was the one that went in front of him that I didn't have going in front of him because he was coming off of that injury and he wasn't going to be ready when the season started. So I didn't factor him being ahead of him, Jameson Williams. So that was the fifth receiver. And then he ended up being a fourth receiver, and then he ended up being the fifth one. So I'm like, technically speaking, he's right where he's supposed to be. I just didn't see it coming. And so I think I just was like, and it might have been my face that prompted a lot of people to feel like it was a bad pick, but it really wasn't a bad pick. And I spent the next hour or so convincing 2-3 hours, because I was lit that night. We got lit. I mean, we were drinking. Remember, we had a party. I had like 80 glasses of wine. I was done. That was the most lit in terms of drinking I had ever been on a stream, but we had fun that night. And I think I spent the next 2-3 hours convincing everybody that it wasn't a bad pick. And then people would leave the stream, go watch Jahan Dotson highlights and come back and be like, hey, actually, Louie T, you're still here? I loved you. I didn't think you'd still be here. And then they were like, man, this Dotson guy is actually pretty good. I'm like, I've been trying to tell y'all that. So anyway, King of the Bluegrass. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. King of the Bluegrass writes, oops, sorry about that. Our bye week is the first Eagles game. I hope we don't have that Brazil game against the Eagles in week 1. That's going to be some nasty work for somebody. Hope it ain't us. Hope it is not us. Big Money Sonny, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Big Money Sonny writes, nah, bump that, Lou. Milk Dead and NHL throwing 80 times a game. I really thought he would hit that 100 mark. Do you have any NHL hats left? Of course I do. Of course I do. Somebody said you're going to see some kids or some people in third world countries with that hat on. Got plenty of them shits left. Of course I do. Oh, man. Big Buddy Sonny, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, Lou, dope stream. Let's effing go. Man, I'm excited. I am. I'm cautiously optimistic, but this is the best press conference I've seen, I think, as a fan. And that includes Gibbs 2.0. That includes Gibbs 2.0. Big Bad Wolf Beatty, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, nah, FEB, Sam back there getting killed, and EB just saying another one. I feel bad for Sam, man, was getting rocked like Rocky. Nah, it was bad. And then they would cut over to EB after another sack, and he just calling the next play. Like, I mean, what are you supposed to do, right? But it's like it was almost like he didn't have an answer. Like, bro, like that Giants game, that shit did something to me inside. I don't recall, like the Bears game, I was more in shock watching that game unfold the way that it did. I did not see that coming. That's probably the most disappointed I've been watching a game in a while. The Giants game, I can't think of a game where I was more infuriated. I can't think of a game where I was more mad. And I don't really get mad watching games anymore. It's more of disappointment than being upset. I was pissed that Giants game. Because I had talked all that shit in the offseason. We're going to bust your shit twice, this, that. And they were so trash, right? Like, there was no excuse for losing to the Giants. None. And this clown comes out, is getting Sam murdered. The offensive line now was awful in that game. But EB didn't give them a chance to succeed. You see them struggling. You see that Nick Gates can't pick up a twist to save his life. No looping, stunting defender. He's going to be able to. You already see what the line is doing. So where is the counter to that? I've never seen Wink Martindale laugh on the sidelines. His ass was weak over there at us in the incapability of beating the blitz, picking the shit up, anything. It was a joke, man. It was a joke. That shit did something to me. Dr. B, Thank you for stand up, Dr. B. You are the newest member of the MOBB. Mob, y'all know what to do. Show Dr. B some love. Welcome Dr. B with open arms. Welcome to the squad, Dr. B. Welcome. Welcome, welcome. King of the Bluegrass. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. King of the Bluegrass writes, if you do go back and watch it, I was under the name Michael White back then, and I was banging the table for Trent McDuffie. He would have been an awesome pick if we used him correctly. I still don't know if we would have utilized him the way that Kansas City has. But I don't know who we were rooting for us to take then. I'm playing that back in my mind, and I'm pretty sure there was a name or two that we were looking at. And I can tell you right now, it wasn't Trent McDuffie for me. But I can't tell you what we were expecting. Now that I think about it, all the guys that we had talked about the entire process was gone already. So I can't even think about who it would have been, to be honest with you. But in any event, quick reminder once again, and I've already said this, Thursday, we will be live. Commander Kings, Ed, Rico, Rio, myself, 8:30 here live on the Louie T Network. Should be a lot of fun. I can't wait to get those guys' opinions and their reactions to everything. And I just want them to walk us through, you know, their emotions as everything transpired. It should be a lot of fun catching up with those guys and seeing how they feel about everything that has happened. So that'll be Thursday night. I got a show for you on Wednesday that I'll be hitting y'all with. So be on the lookout for that. And tomorrow we'll have the Louie T Network podcast. Barring any kind of real happenings with this team, which I wouldn't be shocked if something did happen. But like I said, they'll keep the news to a minimum during Super Bowl week. So I can't imagine anything major happening. They're going to continue to work to fill out their staff, clearly. And I showed you the tweet of them trying to go get the defensive pass game coordinator from the Raiders to bring on board a guy that is very comfortable and with Joe Witt Jr. So we're going to see them start to make some moves here. When's the last time Washington has had a defensive pass game coordinator? Anybody? When's the last time we had one of those? This shit is different, man. I'm just telling you. Don't shoot me. I'm just a messenger. We've had defensive back coaches. We've had a safety coach. We've had a corners coach. DB. We've never had a passing game coordinator. Not that I've been aware of. A defensive pass game coordinator. Haven't seen one here in Washington. Anyway, I digress. John Perez. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, JP. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes? I think we might get a big ticket item or two in free agency. Also, we might get a vet on D like Wagner or Gilmore, but Swift could be a menace in this offense. I don't see us going after anybody super old like that. Gilmore's pretty old. So is Wagner. Those don't make a ton of sense here. But Swift would be interesting. Swift would be interesting for sure. Metaphor. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Metaphor writes, so much TV show talk about Cliff Kingsbury and Caleb. Ben J moment. I'm trying to tell y'all, that's going to be the narrative. So prepare yourself. Don't get caught up in all of that hoopla. I'm just telling you, every hallway got some crack in it. Don't get trapped in it. That's all you're going to hear about is them connecting the dots. Cliff Kingsbury to Caleb Williams to number one. I've already seen a whole bunch of that stuff. I'm steering clear of it because I don't think it's happening. But we'll see, right? We will see. Anyway, I digress. That's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on the Command Post Live. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. I will keep you guys abreast of anything that happens, just like you guys keep me abreast of everything that goes on. I really, truly do appreciate you guys for that. If anything major happens, you'll see my face all up in your space. If not, LouieTeeNetwork podcast tomorrow. I'll be back with some more Washington content for you on Wednesday. And then Thursday, we'll have the Commanders Kings. For those of you interested, I am now the new ambassador, if you will, for the Memphis Grizzlies on Bleacher Report. So I will be doing some videos for Bleacher Report for the Memphis Grizzlies. And my first one will be on Wednesday, February the 7th. So I'll be letting you guys know, and I'll be reminding y'all, check it out if you want. It'll be there. It's not going to be, they're not going to promote it or anything, but it'll be on, and I'll be live on Bleacher Report at a specific time. And I'll be up there 4 times this month talking about the Grizzlies. So for anybody that is interested, check it out. Anyway, that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T. I thank you guys for joining me. I look forward to chopping it up with you guys next time. Impressive debut for Dan Quinn. Adam Peters, Josh Harris, they all seem to be aligned, and the vision seems to be clear. And it's very refreshing. It truly, truly is. One thing's for certain. Don't count out old Sammy Howell. NHO may not be dead just yet. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. God bless and good night.
You've been around football your entire life. You know the quarterback position is one of the most important positions on the field. What do you look at when you see the quarterback position here currently in Washington, and maybe how do you plan to attack that via free agency or the draft?
Yeah, and certainly talent is here also at quarterback, going against, Sam through this year and honestly from a little bit from last year as well. You knew how, talented this player was, and the strength and the arm talent and the ability to create, and that's what quarterback play is, off-schedule plays and get outside the pocket. Not everything is always clean and where you can go. So we're just getting started on the evaluation phase. And so when you're putting a whole program together, there's free agency, there's the draft, and you'll look at all the things, to try to make the team better. But I was certainly impressed by the competitor that Sam is. That jumped out to me, how tough and competitive he is.